Hello everyone, welcome to the What If Anime YouTube channel. Today, we are diving into an exciting new story that will take your imagination to the next level. Let's get started. What if Naruto was king of Pokegirls world? Let's start the story. Naruto was standing in front of Kyuubi's cage. This was getting into a regular habit whenever he fought that idiot Sasuke. It was damn annoying. He had a sword rammed through his stomach, broken left arm, and he couldn't feel his right hand very well. He was quite tall, standing about 6 foot 1 inches, blonde hair that was so silky that most girls would kill to have their like it. Deep sea blue eyes that you could get lost in. He was wearing black khaki trousers, a black form-fitting t-shirt, and his pride and joy, a black trench coat. And the trench coat Neo wears from the Matrix. He remembered how he got here in the first place. Flashback. Naruto was in agony. Then again, most people would be if they were in his situation. His arm was pretty much snapped in two and he had a damn sword sticking out of his chest. To make matters worse, Sasuke had just run a Chidori Nagashi through his body, so he was smoking, literally. Sasuke had arrived at Konoha after discovering that the council had ordered Itachi to slaughter his clan, intent on avenging his clan. However, he couldn't just kill the council. No, the emo bastard had to kill everything in sight, including civilians. After ripping Naruto off his sword, Kakashi began to use his Mangekyo Sharingan's ability to rip a hole in the interdimensional space-time continuum, intent on sending Sasuke to another dimension, or kill him, whichever happened first. Sakura, however, moved Kakashi's point of view away from Sasuke, which unluckily for Naruto, Sakura had made Kakashi look right at him. The Kamui hit him dead on. That was the last thing that the blonde-haired teen knew before he blacked out. End flashback. So Naruto was currently standing in front of the furball's cage. He needed some answers and only the fox would be able to give them. "Oi fox, get your ass over here, I need to ask some questions." Naruto peered into the darkness as the fox slowly came into view, muttering something about impatient brats and something about vixens. "What the hell do you want, brat? I'm busy trying to figure out where we will end up," boomed the voice of the most powerful Biju in existence. "Took your sweet time, fox, and what do you mean where we will end up? What happened?" Naruto thought irately. The fox once again grumbled something about vixens, loud brats and anal raping them with tails. It sighed heavily and began to explain. "You remember what your sensei's technique does, I assume? Well, when I say I'm trying to figure out where we will end up is that we are currently in another dimension. Don't ask anything yet as you are unconscious, and until you wake up I can't gather any information for you," the great being explained. Naruto was contemplating what the fox said. Another dimension. It sounded impossible, but then again, who knew what that technique of Kakashi's actually did? He was about to find out though. "Looks like another adventure, fox," spoke Naruto. You could hear the undercurrent of glee that he had tried to hide in his voice. The Biju sighed in exasperation, anger, and also slightly of amusement. At least its container never had a boring life. The great beast would have probably tried to commit suicide by now through boredom. Naruto began to fade away. "Looks like it's time to leave, kid. By the way, when you call me fox again, I'll render your limbs apart from your body and make you eat them. I'm a female, so call me a vixen instead," spoke the Kyuubi with a shit-eating grin on her face. If foxes could have shit-eating grins. Naruto, however, looked stunned and his face showed it. "Well, that shows all the cis people up, doesn't it? The strongest being in my dimension is a female. Sucks to be all those people who say women are weak." With that, Naruto disappeared, missing the look on Kyuubi's face. Maybe there is some hope for the brat yet, thought the vixen as she began to access his senses so she could find out what was going on. "Hey, Nurse Joy. He's beginning to wake up." That was the first sound Naruto had heard after he woke up with a groan. To be honest, it gave him a splitting headache, making him groan again, this time in pain. Beginning to sit up, he felt a soft, delicate hand place itself on his chest and push him back down again. "Easy, sir. You have been out cold for 3 days. You're going to have a head rush if you sit up like that again," spoke a melodic female voice. Naruto looked over to the speaker, and it took all his willpower not to let his jaw drop. In front of Hit stood a pretty-looking young woman. She looked to be about 19. She had glossy pink hair that reminded him of Sakura before they took their first Chunin exam. For some odd reason, she also had pink eyes, but figured it was genetic. The woman stood at 5 foot 3 inches and had a pretty impressive bust. Naruto shook his head mentally. God damn it. After all the willpower and resistance he put up against Jiraiya's perverse ways, he had finally turned into a pervert. Kyuubi meanwhile was smiling with glee. Maybe her container would get laid now. He better if he knew what was good for him. Excuse me ma'am, but where am I? Asked Naruto, not noticing there were 2 other people in the room. The woman smiled. The boy was polite at least. Call me Joy, and you are in a Pokegirl healing center. You were found in a small crater about 3 miles east of here. Do you know how you got here at all, mister? Asked the nurse. Naruto was currently very confused. This is bad. What can I say? Damn it, what can I do? I know, it's not every original but should get the job done. Thought the blonde as an idea hit him. Hello Joy. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. The blonde looked at Joy, who stared back as if waiting for him to continue. Naruto put on a thinking pose, making it look like he was trying his best to remember what happened to him. I'm sorry Joy, but I can't remember how I got here or what happened to me. All I remember is my name and the fact I have a few bloodline limits. Also I remember a bit about my childhood. Spoke Naruto in a forlorn voice. Trying to sit up again, Joy tried to force him down only to encounter a greater resistance than she thought she would. One of my bloodline limits is rapid healing. I'll be okay. Just let me sit up please. The nurse nodded cautiously and helped Naruto sit up. When he seemed fine, she smiled. However, what he has said had caught everyone else in the room by surprise. It seemed the teen had amnesia. All he could remember was his name and he had a blood gift. It would appear you have amnesia, Naruto. Are you a tamer by any chance? Asked the boy who was standing next to the door. Naruto spun round and did a double take. He must be getting rusty if he hadn't sensed him coming. He looked for the companion and froze. Before he could control himself, he blurted, "What the heck is that?" That was when Naruto actually looked at the male properly. He was about 5 foot 9 inches and looked to be around 19. He was fairly muscular and had hazelnut brown colored eyes and hair. Naruto realized what he had just done and felt really bad. It was obvious he had just made the man mad when he called his partner a thing. Hey Lawrence, right. Sorry about calling your partner a thing. She just surprised me. I'm sorry to you as well, miss. Could you tell me exactly what your companion is? Lawrence nodded. He could tell Naruto was sincere in his apology and felt really bad about it. The turtle, if it could be called, that bowed slightly. Naruto could tell she wasn't used to people apologizing to her. Ah, no worries, right Ashley? Asked Lawrence as he glanced at the newly named girl beside him. She smiled slightly and shocked Naruto again as she began to speak. Apology accepted, Naruto-kun. I am what's known as a squirtati. I'm a Pokegirl, created by Tsukubi, a mad perverted scientist. He created us to battle against humans. However, after many years he lost and we began to live alongside people. Spoke Ashley as Naruto sat there absorbing the new information he received. So basically you are super soldiers created by some lunatic. You remind me of me then. Naruto's mouth acted before his brain and he mentally cursed. The 3 looked at Naruto. I thought you couldn't remember anything apart from your name gifts and a small part of your childhood? Are you lying to us? Demanded Lawrence as he looked at Naruto with a piercing gaze. Naruto sighed. That's the part of my childhood I remember. I wish I could forget it. I'll tell you when I'm ready, so don't push me. Naruto spoke, recognizing the look in Lawrence's eye. The brown-eyed teen nodded and sighed. There are many different types of Pokegirl. They're all unique in some way and another and all have slightly different personalities. I am what's called a tamer. We go around capturing Pokegirls to stop them from doing what Tsukubi wanted them to do. If a Pokegirl isn't tamed regularly, then she becomes feral and her mind becomes more animalistic. She stops thinking like a human would, and the job as tamers do is to tame them to bring their reasoning back. Continued Lawrence from Ashley's explanation. Naruto nodded and began sorting through this new tirade of information. What exactly is taming? Asked Naruto, desperate to learn more. This was one of the only times he actually wanted to learn. Then again, he would have to survive in this world until he found a way to go home. Taming is pretty much as tamers capture feral Pokegirls solely to tame them. We do this by the act of mating. Pokegirls have a mental need that can only be renewed by having said Lawrence with a somewhat blush on his face. Naruto was flabbergasted. Such a perverted world. Kyubi was doing a small dance of glee. She was bi, so it didn't matter to her. So essentially you travel the world, capture pretty women like the one next to us and screw their brains out? This in turn makes them think clearer and loyal to you. Then you have to look after them? Sounds pretty damn sweet. I may take the job up. I need to find my way back home anyway, and I doubt I'll be able to do it here. Naruto spoke, drawing looks from Lawrence. Naruto saw a small trace of anger in his eye. Are you going to be one of those bastards who treat their Pokegirls like dirt? If you are, I will personally make sure you can't use your package again. Naruto blinked at the threat. What the hell, dude? I am guessing Pokegirls are usually treated like dirt. Naruto got a nod in reply. He sighed and shook his head. I'm not a heartless gid like most teenagers who have a tendency to think with their second heads. I'm guessing there are tamers who just use the job to screw anything female. If I catch a Pokegirl, then she wouldn't be a slave or anything. She would be a partner. I hate it when people are made into servants or are treated like crap for no reason. It disgusts me. Everyone looked slightly stunned as the blonde finished the statement. Anyway, where can I sign up to be a tamer anyway? It seems to be the best course of action as it gives me permission to travel freely. Asked Naruto as he slowly got out of his bed and stretched. Your blood gift is truly amazing. I suppose that's the only thing that saved you, as Lawrence here found you in a very bad condition. To become a tamer you'll have to see Professor Richard Banger. Spoke the nurse in a soft tone. Naruto smiled at her gently. Hey, do you know where my clothes are? Or were they destroyed as well? Asked Naruto as he hunted high and low for his clothes. I repaired them for you. It wasn't a good job, but I tried as you didn't have any other clothing, though you did have this cylinder. Said Joy as she handed him his clothes and a scroll. Thanks a lot, Joy. I hope I can repay you someday. You have done a lot for me and I don't like just taking from people. I will remember what you did for me, but can you do me one last favor? Point me in the direction of the professor. Asked Naruto as he got dressed. Joy blushed when she saw his body and pointed out of the window, and Naruto saw a massive building. Thank you both for taking care of me. Maybe I'll see you around someday. And with that, Naruto jumped out of the window and began to roof hop towards the laboratory, leaving 3 stunned beings in his wake. Lawrence looked at the nurse who just gaped at the window. I'm off, Nurse Joy. I'm heading to the lab to see if Naruto passes or not. The pink-haired female nodded at him. She had forgotten that there was a test for people to become tamers. She was worried. Naruto had amnesia, this would be hard for him. Naruto arrived at the lab 5 minutes later. He had to admit, he was impressed with the size of the building. Walking in, he noticed there was a lot of high-tech stuff around. He wandered further into the complex and found a garden. What shocked him was all the different Pokegirls there were. He had seen one true, but there were loads here. He probably couldn't count them all. He stood at the doorway looking at them all when suddenly he sensed someone and spun round. He saw an old man looking at him. The man looked at Naruto. He could tell the teen wasn't a thief, as he wouldn't be admiring all the girls. What brings you here, son? Asked the man as he kept his eye on Naruto before 2 Pokegirls dropped on either side of him. Naruto smiled. Impressive. It's not often people can sneak up on me like you two. By the way, sir, are you the professor called Richard Banger? I'm here to become a Pokegirl tamer. Spoke Naruto in a confident voice that threw the professor for a loop. Not many went as far as to be able to sneak into his lab and actually get to the storage spaces for the girls. I'm indeed Richard Banger. How did you get so far into my lab? Getting past the gate must have been no easy feat. Naruto looked at the man oddly. I didn't notice a gate. Are you sure there is one, cuz I just walked in here casually? Stated the blonde teen as if it was an everyday thing. This made the professor walk into the control room with Naruto being ushered in by the Pokegirls. God damn it! The Pokegirls forgot to close it again! Exclaimed the extremely annoyed man. Anyway, can I take the test now? I really need to get moving. I got places to go and people to pay back. I owe them quite a bit. Spoke Naruto, dragging Richard out of his rant. Remembering why the teen was here, he quickly dragged him to his office. Pulling out a sheet and a pen, he asked Naruto to fill it all in. Naruto thought it looked somewhat like a test, but filled the document in anyway. After completing the sheet, he handed it back to the man who looked over it. Very well, you passed the test to become a tamer. You will receive a Pokegirl, a Pokédex, and a book called A Tamer's Guide for Dummies. Also, you can choose a Pokegirl to start off your adventure with. We also need to register you as a tamer so you can actually do all of this legally without awkward questions," said the professor as he led Naruto back to the storage facility where all the Pokegirls resided, after giving him a red rectangular object. "Hey, we are Naruto. Take your pick of any in this room. I'll be waiting in my office for you," spoke the man as he left the room. Naruto nodded to show that he understood and walked into the room. It was an amazing place, with many different girls all looking at him curiously. He looked around until one Pokegirl caught his eye. Surprisingly, it was one of the shyer ones that only glanced at him every now and then, trying to figure him out. Naruto began walking towards her and she looked a little startled. Pulling out his Pokédex, he hit the little button on the side and pointed at the Pokegirl. Level 10 Nogitsune, the can't get any tail Pokegirl. Type: Animorph, Vulpine. Element: Dark, Magic Frequency. Rare. Diet: Omnivore, preference for fish and meat roll. Illusionist, Avenger. Libido: Average, can become high depending on the tamer's harem. Strong versus Dark, Ghost, Psychic weak versus Bug, Fighting, Dog Pokegirls. Attacks: Scratch, Bite, Pummel, Leap, Tackle, Hypnotize, Dream Eater, Illusion, Smile, Mana Bolt, Mystic Bolt, Shadow Shot, Teleport. Enhancements: Quickness, Enhanced Hearing, X5, and Enhanced Olfactory Sense, X5, Undetectable Aura. Evolves: Dark Kitsune, Redemption, Love or Shiny Stone. Evolves from Kitsune, Personal Dishonor. Loss of Tail, Vixen, Dark Stone plus Dusk Stone. It seems that whenever a Kitsune does something that goes against her personal code, a form of honor unknown to any other being, a Kitsune loses her tail and becomes Nagatsune. With the loss of her tail, the Kitsune's body seems to unleash a high amount of dark energy, changing the Kitsune into a new Pokegirl. Though it is unknown how it happens, perhaps it is the work of a natural mechanism in a Kitsune, perhaps it is not. By becoming a Nagatsune, there are many changes to the Kitsune being besides the loss of her tail. The Kitsune's fur changes to a pattern of black and white, almost similar to a skunkhead or Mephidus. Also, with the loss of tail, more magical properties of the Kitsune are unleashed, making her a somewhat powerful magic type. It should be known, however, that a Nagatsune is quite a difficult Pokegirl to maintain in a tamer's harem. The Nagatsune becomes very conceited, as she sees herself as having nothing to lose, so that train of thought makes two traits about the Nagatsune stand out. The first, and hardest for the tamer, is that since the Nagatsune sees herself as having nothing, she wants all she can get from her tamer, wanting more time with him during taming sessions, or as the second trait shows, wanting to be used in battle. The need to fight within a Nagatsune, however, can be a mixed blessing, as with the want to be in battle. A Nagatsune is ruthless, using Hypnotize to put her opponent first, then draining her with Dream Eater. Should a Nagatsune's opponent be able to shake off her Hypnotize, the Nagatsune will tend to use Mana Bolt or Mystic Bolt, depending on the level of mana, then follow up with Shadow Shot while the opponent is stunned. It should also be stated that it is never a good idea to have a Nagatsune and a Shagwar in the same harem. The two Pokegirls seem to have a rivalry that is up to the ferocity of the Kunoichis and Cheshires, or the demon goddesses, and the Neo-Issels. It is thought to be possible for Nagatsune to evolve, however, what she can evolve into is unknown at this time. Naruto looked at the fox in front of him. She seemed kind of depressed. He noticed her missing tail. That's why she is down. It seems she broke her code. I wonder what her code was. Naruto, stealing his nerves and calming himself down, began to walk closer to the vixen in front of him. He noticed she was watching him wearily, like he was going to say something snide to her. Her old tamer left her here when she lost her tail due to she let him get hurt in a battle. It broke her promise she swore on her honor, and she lost her tail. She was surprised, however, when the teen in front of her spoke to her. "Hey, are you okay? Why are you sitting here by yourself?" asked Naruto as he looked at the petite girl in front of him. She stood at 5'2", so he had to look down a bit to look her in the eyes. "Why do you care? You know I am a failure, so why are you speaking with me?" demanded the petite girl, angrily glaring at the man in front of her. Naruto looked at her and sighed. This would be annoying. He knew she was capable, but because she had failed once, she deemed herself a failure. "The reason why I care? Well, I like foxes. and it pains me to see a vixen in this state. If you come with me, I promise on my honor I will help you regain your lost honor." This shocked the girl in front of him. A male, who didn't even know her, wanted to help her. Her old tamer had been a bastard to his girls, abusing them mentally and physically. She had thought all males were scum, yet this complete stranger was offering to help her. "I'll give you a purpose. I'll help you with your problems. Besides, I can't just leave a depressed woman around now. I'll feel terrible. So what do you say? Will you be my first partner?" asked Naruto as he looked directly into her eyes. Once again she looked at him and saw no deception on his face at all. "Are you serious? Would you really help me get my honor back and regain my tail? If you swear on your honor one more time, I'll follow you anywhere. I'm getting desperate right now. I need to redeem myself and regain my honor. Everyone knows that I broke my promise and tend to avoid me." Naruto nodded sadly. He could see the pain the vixen in front of him was going through, and it hurt and saddened him to the core. "If you come with me, I promise on my honor I will help you regain your lost honor. I won't go back on my word. A friend told me this once. Someone who abandons the mission are considered trash. But those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash. If you join me, you will be a comrade, and my mission of trying to get you to join me is complete. That way I'm neither, and if you never abandon me, then I will help you in any way I can," spoke the blonde in a trusting voice to the vixen in front of him. After that the vixen nodded. "Okay, I'll be your first companion. However, if you back out of your promise, I'll kill you," the girl threatened as she held out her hand for a handshake. Naruto nodded at what she said and took her small hand in his own much larger one. "Deal. Now let's find that old man and start our adventure. What do you say, partner?" asked Naruto as he began walking to the door to find Richard. The tailless vixen quickly caught up to him and nodded. "Yes, master. Let's see what kind of mischief we can get up to." Naruto grinned at the girl. He could tell they were going to get along just fine. There was one thing he would have to sort out, though. "Don't call me master, or any other superior name. We are partners and I will value you as such." The girl glowed with happiness. Even though she was a disgrace, her tamer still treated her with respect. He was a rare find and she wasn't going to disappoint him. Walking into the professor's office, she heard Naruto talking to him. "Yo, old man, shows my Pokegirl. Have you sorted out my data for a tamer yet?" asked Naruto, as he strode into the room with the Nagatsune following him shyly. She was still a bit worried that the teen in front of her was playing a joke. However, he hadn't slipped up yet. If he was lying, she would killing him and run away. "Yes, Naruto. I have filled in all your information for you, so you are not questioned by the authorities if you run into trouble. However, you just need to give some personal details." The man then noticed Naruto's choice of Pokegirl, as Naruto sat at a computer and began inputting the data needed. "Naruto, are you sure you want this Pokegirl? Nagatsunes aren't the best companion a beginning tamer should start off with." The vixen looked at Naruto worriedly, that if he didn't want her now, he knew that information. Her fears were unfounded, however, when she heard Naruto reply. "I'm not going to let someone with as much talent as her go to waste with someone. She has amazing potential that no one can be bothered to tap into for her. I also want to help her regain her lost honor. What can I say, apart from I'm a sucker for a pretty girl in need," spoke the blonde teen as he shrugged. "Well, if you say so, don't blame me if you have problems with her," spoke the professor uncaring voice as he tossed Naruto her Pokeball. This made the vixen decide on her promise. She wouldn't let her tamer down, no matter what happened. He was the only reason she had something left now. If she lost him, then she would lose everything. She would rather die than let that happen. Naruto frowned slightly. "She will do fine. We have an understanding. I have promised to help her, and if there is one thing I never do, it's go back on my word. Now if you have finished my data, I will be going. I am eager to explore this world." The professor nodded and began to transfer Naruto's data to his Pokédex. "Thank you, Professor. Come, partner, we are leaving now. I'll stay in touch, old man, and let you know how we progress." With that, Naruto and the vixen walked out of the door. They left the compound and began to head back to town. Naruto looked at the demure girl beside him. It was time they got to know each other. "We are going to the woods near here. I want to learn more about who I will be working with in the future." With that, Naruto began walking to the trees nearby with his Pokegirl right behind him. When they found a clearing, Naruto sat down and gestured the vixen to sit down. "Okay. First I want to know if you have a name." I don't want to keep calling you companion and such. The vixen looked at him and cocked her head in a cute manner. I do not have a name, Naruto-kun. I was never given one. Naruto nodded and thought for a while. A few minutes had passed when he spoke again. How does Kairi sound to you? Asked the blonde, breaking the silence between the two of them. The Nagatsune contemplated it and smiled. I like that name, Naruto-kun. Kairi it is. Spoke the newly named Pokegirl. Naruto smiled at her and decided to what Kakashi did to Team 7 when they were first assembled. Okay, now we have you a name. Let's start with introductions as we never really did them. I'll go first. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I'm 16. I like helping people, fighting and chilling out with my comrades. I dislike power-hungry idiots, people who think they are above others and people who look down on others because they are different. My hobby is training and relaxing with my friends. My dream for the future. Well, I won't tell you my dream until you tell me yours. Kairi nodded, took a breath and then began. My name is Kairi, as you know. I like people who are kind to others, training and causing mischief. I dislike it when people think I'm worthless because I don't have a tail. My hobby is pulling pranks and having fun in general. My dream is to regain my lost honor and to never let you down. Naruto nodded at the girl and smiled. She was virtually a real fox in taste and likes. Okay, then I'll tell you my dream now then. My dream is to help you accomplish yours. However, I can tell you will never let me down. So long as you try your best, then that's all I can ask of you. Spoke the blonde in a calm voice, and got rewarded by a slight smile from the vixen. Okay, now tell me your strengths and weaknesses. I need to know how you prefer to fight. I don't want to order you to do something you're not good at. The vixen nodded and began explaining. I'm not physically strong. I prefer to keep moving at a high rate of speed to overwhelm my opponent and attack them from afar. I can link moves together to form combination, for example my Hypnotize and Dream Eater combo. I am good with illusions to confuse my opponents. My weakness, however, is that I am not good at close encounters. I'm not physically strong and I can't take many physical hits from opponents. Naruto nodded. It seemed he had made a good choice. I made a good choice. You seem to be a very versatile fighter that can adapt to different problems in a fight quickly. The only thing we need to do now is increase your defense, as then you can take less damage. The female glowed with the praise she received. There you are. I've been looking all over for you. Sweet, you got a Nagatsune. Guess you like a challenge. The two people in the clearing looked around and saw Lawrence running towards them. Kairi got up and walked in front of Naruto casually, not knowing whether this guy was a friend or not. Stand down, Kairi. He's all right. How are you doing, Lawrence, and why were you looking for me? Lawrence looked at Naruto and explained. Me and Ashley were worried that you would fail, so we went looking for you. It's obvious you passed though, congratulations. Even if you have picked a rare Pokegirl to start with. Not many tamers would willingly raise a Nagatsune. Lawrence shut up when he caught Naruto's glare burning into him. Who I raise is my choice. I'm willing to give her a chance to prove herself. Everyone deserves that. How about a battle? That way you can get a feel for how you fight, as I don't think you remember how to. Better against a friend than against something that could turn the situation into something deadly. Naruto nodded at Lawrence's suggestion and looked at Kairi, who just looked straight into Lawrence's eyes. They could see she was eager to start. Guess we have a battle then. Stated Naruto as Kairi walked in front of him. Lawrence called out Ashley and both girls began staring down their opposition. Naruto pulled out his Pokédex and scanned the Squirtity in front of him. Level 12 Squirtitty, the titillating turtle Pokegirl. Type: near human element. Water frequency: common diet, vegetarian, seafood. Role: water bearer libido. Average strong versus fire, rock, water. Weak versus electric, ice, plant attacks, water gun, glare, leer, scratch, withdraw. Enhancements: increased lung capacity, armored shell. Evolves: Hortortle, normal, Blastits. Evolved Hortortle, normal. Evolves from Nunsquirtitties are only slightly more proficient at swimming than your average human, but are able to hold their breath for nearly half an hour before needing air. They aren't meant to be deep water divers though, since their shell acts as a mild flotation device for them, its composition being mildly buoyant as a natural precaution against drowning. Squirtitties are about as able on the land as they are in the water. A Squirtitty's shell is used in battle only as a defensive move. When she uses withdraw, she'll curl into the fetal position and face her back towards her foe, trusting her shell to protect her. She is unable to pull any part of herself back into her shell. Many tamers enjoy having their Squirtitty go down on them before or during taming, since, as water types, they can hold their breath for a long time. When taming, Squirtitties are quick to get wet, although this isn't water, and like being on their back, since the feeling of being on their shells makes them feel slightly helpless. This isn't true, since a Squirtitty has no problem righting herself from this position, but it makes it much more enjoyable for her, lending a submissive element to it that drives her wild. Feral Squirtitties are relatively easy to capture out of the water. They tend to use their water gun attack a little too freely, and once they're done with that, capturing them isn't hard at all. Threshold girls who become water-type Pokegirls tend to become Squirtitties more often than other water types. Naruto finished scanning his opponent. Kairi, your opponent isn't as fast as you, but you will more than likely lose at close range. Keep back and attack from a distance. Remember to use your surroundings as you are undetectable. I want you to think ahead. I want people who will think for themselves. However, if I do give you an order, it is for your best interests, so please listen to what I have to say. The vixen nodded. Naruto took a kunai out and looked at Lawrence. When this kunai hits the ground, the match begins. Agreed. Lawrence nodded and Naruto tossed the knife into the air. As soon as the knife struck the ground, Kairi used teleport to vanish from the battlefield. Ashley, keep on guard, she could strike from any direction. He was cut off when a mana bolt stuck Ashley from behind. The Squirtitty whirled round and fired a water gun in the direction the attack came from, but Kairi had already vanished to a different spot. Nice job, Kairi. Keep it up. If she doesn't know where you are, she can't fight back, called Naruto as Ashley got knocked around as mana bolts and the occasional mystic bolt flew at her from every direction. Suddenly, 2 minutes later, Kairi appeared in the middle of the clearing looking exhausted. Naruto frowned slightly. We'll have to work on her stamina, though she has caused a lot of damage, thought the blonde as he looked at his opponent. Ashley looked in extremely bad shape. There were burns and cuts all over her body and she looked like she was barely standing. Oi Lawrence, let's call this a draw. Your Pokegirl is barely standing due to her injuries and mine is exhausted. Lawrence looked at Naruto and nodded. It was only a friendly match. Kairi, however, seemed upset. Why, Naruto-kun, I could have kept fighting. Sure, I was exhausted, but I could still have used close combat. My opponent wasn't in an any better condition than me. The vixen cried. It felt like she failed again. Naruto looked at her and realized what she was thinking. Kairi, if this was a life or death match, then yes, I would have let you fight more. However, this was only a spar. There was no need to take it too far. Also, you fought amazingly and had a Pokegirl a higher level than you on the ropes. Tomorrow we will be working on your stamina, lectured Naruto as he walked over and hugged the girl to reassure her that she did okay. Both tamers decided to head back to the Pokegirl healing building. After healing both girls, Naruto and Kairi bid farewell to Lawrence and Ashley. The two of them headed up to the roof of the building. The sun was setting, quite a picturesque view for them. Naruto leaned back against the wall and Kairi snuggled up beside him. The pair of them just relaxed. After a while they decided to go and talk to Joy. It would kill some time and they weren't very sleepy anyway. When they arrived in the main lobby, they saw a teen hassling Joy. Naruto decided to investigate. If the guy was giving her grief, he was going to break some bones. Come on, Sai. You know you want to get tamed by me, drawled the punk as he leered at her over the counter. The nurse just looked at the boy and grimaced. Actually, I would rather turn feral than get tamed by a person like you. Most Pokegirls would. Naruto smirked at that comment. He knew never to push a lady. You worthless slut. All you're good for is entertaining men. With that, the idiot lashed out. Joy closed her eyes, awaiting the hit that was supposed to land, but it never came. Opening her eyes, she saw the punk's hand being stopped by someone. This shocked the harasser as well, especially when he was thrown through the air and slammed into a concrete pillar. Recovering from his flight, he looked at his attacker to see a blonde teen who looked to be about 3 years younger than him. Naruto looked at the man he had thrown, then looked at the nurse, who looked at him with something akin to awe. Hey Joy, what's up? That question brought the busty nurse back to reality. Oh, nothing, Naruto-kun. Just admiring you taking out the trash. spoke the placid female with a small smile. The teen had finally recovered and began to shoot his mouth off. "Oh, you little punk, stop stealing my woman. Otherwise I'll have to use force." He punctuated the word force by cracking his knuckles. Naruto just sighed at the idiot and took off his trench coat. "Kairi, hold this for me please, this won't take long." The vixen nodded and took his coat. This will be a good time to see what Naruto-kun can do in a battle situation. Naruto just stood there in an easy stance, his arms by his side. Getting bored of watching his opponent flex his so-called muscles, he decided to taunt the man. "Is all you going to do is stand there posing, or are you going to use force because I'm stealing your woman, as you put it?" The enraged man screamed, then charged at Naruto, throwing a punch at his face. Naruto deftly blocked it and slipped inside his guard, slamming his fist into his opponent's solar plexus. Rearing his fist back, he nailed his stunned opposition in the face, breaking his nose. The teen backed up, holding his nose before running away. "How pathetic. I thought I would have a challenge." Both girls stood in awe. They had never seen a human move so fluidly. They tended to rely on machines to fight for them, but Naruto actually knew how to fight, and from the looks of it he was holding back. Naruto turned and looked at the two girls. "Sorry I made you ladies witness such violence, but scum like that disgust me. Anyway, are you okay, Joy?" Kairi looked at Naruto in awe. Joy snapped out of her trance again and nodded. "I'm fine, thank you. You can fight well. I hate it when men just ask to tame me, even when I don't need taming." This threw Naruto for a loop. Joy was a Pokegirl. Then again, he really should have guessed. Most females in this world seem to be. He wondered why this was the case. Why were there human males but subhuman females? He would figure it out later tonight. "Say, Joy, could I scan you with my Pokédex?" asked Naruto. Joy nodded in response, and Naruto pulled out his Pokédex. Level 21 Nurse Joy, the nursing Pokegirl type, very near human. Element: normal frequency. Uncommon, usually found at hospitals and Pokegirl healing centers, has never been found in the wild. Diet: any human-style diet with the preference of vegetables. Role: nursing libido. Average strong versus ghost weak versus fighting. Attacks: dodge, tackle, honey, sweet honey, royal honey, love and affection, hugs and kisses, heal, cure, hura, karaga, pray, multial, omnial, revive, half revive, full revive, region, isuna, hypnotize, yell. Enhancements: innate knowledge of human and Pokegirl anatomy, natural affinity for healing. Evolves: night nurse, battle stress, evolves from none. Nurse Joys, or Joys as they're usually called, are nursing Pokegirls. They can do all healing techniques and will help someone in need by nature. Unfortunately, they rarely, if ever, make good fighters. Nurse Joys were the first species of Pokegirl developed by the Leagues, with the first being born in the year 15 as. Their development began almost immediately after the earliest Pokecenters opened in 10 AS, once the Leagues realized that they just didn't have the manpower to maintain them all. Tamers know that it's very handy to have a Nurse Joy in their pack, since they can heal the other Pokegirls when they get hurt. Nurse Joys don't make good alphas, though, since they don't feel comfortable with the role of group leader. While all Nurse Joys are born with the capability of learning all of the above techniques, few learn more than half of them in their lifetimes. Most choose to specialize in one or two specific areas and focus on learning the advanced techniques for those. That being said, every single Nurse Joy is able to use dodge, tackle, heal, cure, revive, isuna and yell, which they use to stop struggling patients. For some unknown reason, all Nurse Joys have pink hair. Sometimes it's curly, sometimes it's straight, but it's always a bright, vivid pink. Aside from that similarity, Nurse Joys vary in appearance, although a great many of them have pink eyes as well. They stand between 5 feet even and 5 feet 8, though the average is only 5 feet 2. Their busts range between C cups and D cups, and are usually, but not always, proportionate to their height. Thanks a lot, Joy, you helped me out there. It's fascinating seeing all these different Pokegirls, and each different one has a different background and personality. Smiled Naruto as he slipped a piece of equipment into his trench coat pocket. Joy smiled back gently. No thank you for getting rid of that man. He comes in every few days trying to get me to let him tame him. It gets downright annoying, I can tell you," spoke the nurse as she began looking for something under the counter. "Here, take this. It's always a good idea to take some medical supplies with you as you never know what is going to happen in the wilderness," continued the busty pink-haired nurse as she deposited a few spray cans into Naruto's arms. Naruto thanked Joy and sealed the items in the scroll he had brought with him when he crash-landed in this dimension. "Well, anyway, I'm off to relax in the lobby. Kairi, you can do you like until tomorrow. Then we will be going through some intense training. If you can't find me in the lobby, then I probably have gone to bed, so just go to our room. See you all later." With that, Naruto began to walk away, leaving the two females alone with each other. Walking into the lobby, Naruto sat at a table and flipped out his Pokédex. Opening the machine, he accessed the main page and began to update. Tamer ID: Naruto Uzumaki, hometown, Titsville, profession, Tamer. Harem Alpha: Kairi, Nagatsune, level 11-2, N, A3, N, A. 4, N, A5, N, A6, N, ASLC. 4,500 items. Potion X10, Antidote X5, Full Heal X8. Okay, now that's done. I think it's time I actually did some actual research about how Pokegirls came about in this world, Naruto said to himself as he began to flick through the Pokédex menus. He finally saw what he was looking for. "Ah, here we go. This could be an interesting read. Now let's see here," thought Naruto, and for once in his life he began to read eagerly. Sukebe, a master of technology and magic. This is the person responsible for the creation of Pokegirls and the scars created from his war. A great pervert, mage, and scientist, he created the Pokegirls as his slaves and later as his way to get revenge. After he was discovered to be doing genetic experiments, it was initially thought his first lab was destroyed, and from the destroyed lab came the cursed Jusenkyo spell dump. Several years later, Sukebe came back, and this time he used his powers to unleash a nightmare to the people of the earth. Sukebe's revenge lasted for a great many years. It is believed that at the end, after his Pokegirls were turned back on his troops, that he was destroyed in the Battle of the Sand Bay. However, there does not exist any proof that he was in fact killed. This revenge business Naruto saw intrigued him, so he decided to read about Sukebe's revenge. Sukebe's revenge: the war of humanity versus the hentai mage, scientist Sukebe. Sukebe introduced humanity to his form of hell, a plague which killed millions and left nearly all females sterile, soldiers that were far beyond the powers of existing science, and other things the world thought only existed in fairy tales. The war united the world, which at the time was divided into something called nations, and sparked research into developing something that could combat Sukebe's super soldiers, the Pokegirls. The most famous battle was the Battle of Sanbei, where the first energy weapons were used and the beginning of the Tamer forces were created. Sukebe's forces were barely defeated, thanks to the discovery that wild Pokegirls can be controlled by chosen people called Tamers. Also, since most human females had been rendered infertile thanks to the plague, it was discovered that Pokegirls could bear human children as well as Pokegirls, males always human and some females human. However, almost all technology had been lost except those that dealt with stolen technology on Pokegirls. After Sukebe's revenge had been fought, the need for tamers still existed as most Pokegirls had become feral and uncontrolled. Now, several hundred years after Sukebe's revenge, humanity is just beginning to recover. Pokegirls are now somewhat accepted. Tamers are now accepted as full-time jobs. Pure-blood human females are getting rarer since most breeding is done with Pokegirls. Technology has been slowly losing its bad reputation from Sukebe, and humans must now learn the full extent of the world they live in now. After reading the information given to him by his Pokédex, Naruto looked out of the window and decided to go to bed as the clock said it was 10 o'clock at night. He decided to go to the shopping center in town to buy some more stuff. He wanted to get Kairi up to at least level 15 before he left town. He would also catch another girl tomorrow as well, and it was better to be safe than just rely on Kairi. If she went down, then he would have to fight himself, and he would rather his partners didn't find out what he could truly do though. Taking off his clothes so he was standing in his boxers, he climbed into bed and let sleep claim him. Kairi and Joy had struck up a conversation after Naruto had left. "So Kairi, how is Naruto as a tamer?" asked Joy as she worked on a computer updating the medical files. Kairi thought for a while. "Well, He doesn't seem like your average tamer who wants to screw anything that moves. He has already found out how I fight my battles best and is probably going to train me into the ground tomorrow. He doesn't want me to be a mindless drone either, preferring me to think for myself in fights," explained Kairi as she sat on the counter and crossed her legs. Naruto seems to respect people like us unlike most. The only time he has insulted one of us is when he had just woken up and was suffering from amnesia. When he realized, he apologized immediately as he felt terrible about what he has done. All he can remember is parts of his childhood," explained Joy as she finished typing on the computer and put her sole focus on Kairi. Kairi took a while to process what she had been told. It seemed she would have to find out more about her master than she thought. Even though he told her they were comrades, he was still her commander. Effectively, he could still control her on a whim if need be. "I think it's time you go to bed, Kairi. Naruto will train you tomorrow and you're going to need all the rest you can get. It is almost 11:15. Head straight to bed. I'll look around to see if Naruto is still down to tell him you have done so," spoke the nurse kindly as she patted Kairi's shoulder. The tailless vixen nodded her thanks and began to trek to Naruto's room. Giving a wave over her shoulder, the vixen made her way upstairs. Naruto was woken up by a clatter and a quiet hiss of, "Ow fuck, that hurt." Figuring it was Kairi, he yawned and spoke into the dark. "Oi Kairi, what are you doing? Are you okay?" He heard his partner curse under her breath at waking him up and heard her reply. "Yeah, I'm fine. Sorry about waking you. Where is my Pokeball?" Naruto yawned again. He couldn't be bothered getting it, so he did the next best thing he could think of. He yanked her into the bed. "Forget your Pokeball, I'm too tired to actually reach for it. Just sleep in the bed with me tonight." The girl blushed, not that Naruto could see it, and nodded. It wasn't long before Naruto heard her breathing even out, telling him she was asleep. Naruto smiled and pulled her closer to him so her head was resting on his shoulder and he had his arm around her. "Hey, this dimension could prove to be very entertaining. I hope she can keep up with my training program tomorrow or she will most likely be seriously injured." With that, Naruto began falling asleep. His adventures in the elemental nations were over. However, he had a feeling he would find plenty of adventures in this world as well. Sunlight streamed through the crack in the curtains. Unfortunately, it shone directly into Naruto's eyes. Grumbling about destroying the blasted sun, Naruto tried to get up. He was impeded by something snuggled up to him, using him as a pillow. Looking down, he saw Kairi snuggled up to him, snoring gently. Naruto was surprised. He hadn't felt her laying on him. "She's as light as a feather. I can't believe I never felt her," thought Naruto as he looked down at the vixen with a smile on his face. Reaching over to his bedside table, he picked up his Pokédex. He didn't want to wake the sleeping woman laying next to him. Though he was a bit uncomfortable with how tightly she was clinging on to him, he decided to research a bit more on the taming business. At some point or another, he would have to tame Kairi. He didn't exactly feel right when he thought about asking her to be tamed by him. Flicking his Pokédex open, he began to search for information. Taming. In essence, taming is all about S. The process was given a somewhat neutral name so that some people misunderstand what it actually means. Taming is necessary in order for a tamer to develop a relationship with their Pokegirls. Taming must be between 2 or more people. A Pokegirl cannot tame themselves. Most hypotheses say that the taming fulfills some need in the Pokegirl's mind that must be renewed every so often in order for their mind to stay clear. A Pokegirl that isn't tamed often enough will eventually sink into a feral state, losing their intelligence. So long as there is a partner participating in the swall act, the taming need in a Pokegirl is fulfilled. The partner may be either male or female. It doesn't matter so long as it's human. 2 Pokegirls who have not gone feral can even tame each other. However, this works only about half as well as S with a human would, resulting in the Pokegirls needing their next taming sooner than usual. A Pokegirl cannot tame a feral Pokegirl. Such an act requires a human. Feral. A Pokegirl who doesn't get tamed often enough regresses to an animalistic state, called feral. While feral, a Pokegirl cannot think as a human would, and is essentially an animal in mind, making her quite dangerous, although the state may prevent her from using some of her powers. If a Pokegirl gives birth while feral, the result is feral-born Pokegirls. A Pokegirl can be brought back from feral by being tamed by a human. A non-feral Pokegirl cannot bring a feral Pokegirl back by having S with her. However, Two Pokegirls can have S with each other to keep from falling into a feral state, but this only works about half as well as S with a human. Simple masturbation won't even slow a Pokegirl's descent into feral at all. Most tamers use their Pokegirls to weaken feral Pokegirls, then capture them in Pokeballs to pacify them, and then release them and tame them. Looks like Joy and Lawrence were telling the truth. I will have to have S with Kairi at one point or another. Man, this is going to be awkward propositioning it to her. Naruto closed his Pokédex and looked at the clock on the windowsill. The clock read 8:30 in the morning. Deciding to wake Kairi up, Naruto shook her gently. He stopped when he heard her moan in her sleep. "Oh Naruto-sama, yes, please, touch me there," moaned the vixen. Naruto just looked at her with shock. Kairi's began to breath faster as the dream continued, with Naruto sitting there mortified with his penis stirring into life. "Oh yes Naruto-sama, please keep going, make me your vixen," gasped the girl as she began to moan louder. She came with a gasp as she shot upright and quickly placed her hand over her navel. She looked over and blushed heavily as she saw Naruto gawking at her. She turned even redder when she saw the tent in his pants. Naruto watched as she shot upwards after a gasp. He then watched as she noticed him blushed. He also noticed when she looked downward and saw her facial color go from pink to red. He looked down and saw he had a raging hard-on. He yelped in embarrassment as he quickly grabbed his trousers and pulled them up and slung his trench coat on. Trying to cover up their embarrassment, Naruto looked away. "Do what you have to do, Kairi. We are getting you some clothes first. Then we are going to begin training as soon as you are ready. Lock the door when you leave and I'll be waiting in the lobby." With that, Naruto slipped his Pokédex into his pocket and left the room. Naruto waited for 5 minutes before Kairi came down. She took one look at him and blushed furiously. "Come on Kairi, we need to get you some clothes. I'm not having everyone leer perversely at one of my squad." With that, Naruto walked out of the door, Kairi on his heels. Naruto strolled down the street. How hard could it be to find a damn clothes shop around here? "Naruto, there is a shop over there." Naruto looked over at Kairi and saw her pointing at a store. Shrugging, he followed the girl in. Naruto looked around the store and whistled. They had a great array of clothing. "Okay Kairi, pick whatever you want. Just make sure it's comfortable and you were able to wear it while fighting." Kairi nodded and walked down the aisle and out of sight. Naruto sat on a stool for 5 minutes when Kairi returned. "Naruto, what do you think of this?" Naruto looked at her and his eyes widened slightly. "Yo, I would like to buy the clothes my Pokegirl is wearing. Here are the price tags for them," spoke Naruto as he placed the tags on the counter. The man behind looked at him oddly and scanned the tags. "That will be 325 SLC please," spoke the cashier as Naruto inserted his Pokédex into the slot on the counter. After the transaction took place, Naruto double-checked the amount he had left and nodded to the man as he left. Kairi bowed to him and quickly ran after Naruto. The duo walked in peace until they came to the same clearing where they introduced themselves. Kairi watched as Naruto faced her and sat as he motioned her to sit down. "Okay Kairi, today we will be focusing on your endurance. The plan you made in the fight with that Squirtle was an excellent strategy you thought up. However, you underestimated your opponent and overestimated your skills. We need to make you increase your endurance to fight in that style. Now I'm going to be your target. Do the same thing you did yesterday." "But Naruto-kun, you could get seriously hurt. I can't just attack you," exclaimed Kairi as she shook her head. Naruto chuckled lightly as Kairi looked on, confused as to why he was laughing. "Kairi-chan, do you honestly think I would just let you hit me? I will be dodging as I am faster than a Squirtle. Also, my healing blood limit will make sure I won't die. Now come at me from any direction and don't hold back." Kairi sighed. It was no use talking Naruto out of it now. He had made his mind up. "Okay Naruto-kun, I'll trust in your abilities. Good luck." With that, the vixen vanishes with a teleport. "When I say begin, you will start throwing your projectiles at me. I'll be timing you, so last as long as you can. Oh, and one more thing, come at me with the intent to kill. 3, 2, 1, start." As soon as Naruto finished speaking, projectiles starting flying from all directions. Closing his eyes and using his ears, Naruto starts to evade all the attacks heading his way. Kairi was in shock. No matter where she attacked from and how many she sent at one time, her trainer was able to avoid them all. She knew they would have connected if Naruto wouldn't dodge. 5 minutes later, the projectiles finally stopped flying and Kairi walked back into the clearing exhausted. Naruto watched as she slumped to the ground, landing on her knees and muttered something. Naruto couldn't heard it. "Repeat that, Kairi." "I never heard you," asked Naruto as he walked up to the kneeling woman. "I'm weak. I went all out and never even touched you. It's humiliating given that we, unlike men, are meant to be super soldiers." Naruto looked at the woman with a frown and spoke in an icy voice. "So I'm supposed to be weak, am I? Let me tell you something, little girl." Naruto vanished from Kairi's view, causing the girl to look round wildly. She stopped and began shaking when she felt a knife against her neck. "There will always be someone stronger than you. That someone happens to be me. Now then, let's review on the good and bad things you did." Kairi couldn't stop shaking. Her new tamer scared the life out of her. 1 minute he is kind and gentle, next minute he gave off the intent that he could kill you without blinking an eye. She looked at Naruto and began shaking even harder. Naruto noticed and sighed. He didn't mean to shake her up so badly. Sighed, he began to walk towards her. His heart felt heavier as he saw her trying to edge away from him. He pulled her into a hug and whispered, "I'm sorry, but there was a valuable lesson in that little stunt I did. Have you figured it out?" Kairi thought for a little bit then nodded. Never underestimate someone, right? Naruto nodded and smiled at the girl. She had stopped shaking and it looked like she was no longer afraid of him. "Correct, Kairi-chan. Now then, the reason I was able to avoid your attacks is because I could hear them as they came towards me. Even though I can't see 360 degrees, I can hear all around me. Also, your energy fluctuates slightly every time you move location and use a projectile. However, we can't really change that. You kept up the assault for 5 minutes, though, which is very impressive," stated Naruto as he sat down next to the vixen. Kairi glowed at Naruto's praise. However, he did say some stuff that made her wonder what he meant. "You say every time I perform an attack you can sense me, right? Well, would other people be able to as well?" Kairi asked as she stared at Naruto, who took a thinking pose. It was a very good question. After some time she got a reply. "I think only those in tune with their magical abilities or celestial will be able to sense you." Kairi nodded. "You said your eyes can't see everywhere, but you can hear everywhere. What does that mean?" asked the puzzled vixen as she lay back to bask in the sun. Naruto chuckled as he watched the beauty. "Well, I couldn't rely on my eyes because then I would only dodge what I could see. However, if I used my ears I would dodge what I could hear, and your most obvious area of choice is to attack spots I can't see," answered Naruto as he flopped down next to her. "Anyway, we will rest an hour and then work on your endurance. I will work you into the ground. Complain and I'll make it 3 times harder for you. We'll carry on in half an hour. By the way, for training you better take your clothes off. Saves you ruining them," continued Naruto as he lay down next to Kairi and both just lay there watching the clouds go by. 3 hours had passed since then and Kairi was on the verge of collapsing. Naruto was brutal in his training methods. When she had asked how he thought up of the programs, he simply replied, "It pays to know someone like Anko." She wondered who his Anko person was. Then she decided she never wanted to find out who they were, if he got his ideas from them. She reflected back on the training session. She was still fairly tired when Naruto decided they had stopped long enough. He then told her he would be doing what she did to him to increase her dodging ability and build up her endurance. He said he would only stop when she collapsed or couldn't dodge. She nodded, which, according to her, was the worst mistake ever. The projectiles started flying. Knives, throwing stars, stones, boulders, anything he got his hands on he threw at her. They had stopped when Naruto caught the knife he had thrown when it became obvious she was too weak to dodge it. She groaned when he said it was going to be a daily exercise for her. "That's enough for now, Kairi. Let's go get something to eat. Help you regain your strength and then we will work on your defensive skills," spoke Naruto as he stood up and held his hand out to the fox woman who was sat on the ground beside him. She smiled a small grateful smile at him and clasped his hand in hers as she pulls herself up, simultaneously latching onto him. Sighing and shaking his head, while Kairi giggled at the reaction, Naruto led the way back to the center. After restoring Kairi's strength, courtesy of Nurse Joy, and Naruto had finished eating, Naruto and Kairi ended up going to a tamer shop. They needed some supplies for when they left and they needed to stock up on Pokeballs to catch new girls. There was only one problem with this. The duo ended up getting lost. Damn it, Naruto. How the hell did we get lost? The store is on the same damn street as the center, exclaimed a frustrated Kairi. Naruto grimaced. Damn, that girl has a pair of lungs on her. Naruto's inner pervert started giggling at the implication. Naruto slapped himself mentally and finally saw the store. His sweat dropped when he saw a massive neon sign saying Pokegirls store. Kairi, how come we didn't notice this sign before? Asked Naruto as he walked over to the shop. Kairi sighed and followed him. Because the author is a complete idiot and thought it up about 20 seconds ago. They look around as they hear a faint, "Screw you too, Kairi." Did you just hear something? Asked Kairi as she looked around. Naruto did the same and shrugged. I think I did. Anyway, let's not slip off track. With that, the pair entered the store. They were greeted by a fat little man behind a counter. Naruto inwardly cringed at the guy. Naruto walked around with Kairi looking at all the merchandise. After picking what was needed, Naruto walked to the counter. Hello, young sir, how may I help you today? Naruto inwardly winced again. The man's double chin was wobbling every time he spoke. It was not a very pleasant sight. Yes, I would like to purchase these items. Thank you. Naruto then placed the items on the counter as the man began to scan the items. In the middle of the procedure, however, there was a resounding crash. Naruto quickly headed over to the storeroom. When he opened the door, he saw a girl about 5'5" tall lying on the ground with a small cut to her forehead. Hey, are you all right, miss? Asked Naruto as he immediately went over to the downed girl and looked her over. She seemed to be okay apart from the cut on her forehead. The girl nodded hesitantly as she wiped away some of the blood onto her hand. I am fine. Thank you for your concern, however, smiled the woman brightly as she began to get up. Naruto grabbed her hand, pulling her to her feet. What the hell did you do this time, you stupid bitch? We just lost a potential costumer because of you. Naruto spun round to see the shop owner storm in. Completely ignoring Naruto, the man stalked over to the girl, who by now was quivering in fright, when he suddenly struck out and gave her a backhand across the face. Naruto just stood there in shock as he watched the man strike the girl again, this time sending the girl to the floor. Her yelp of pain knocked him out of his daydream and he blocked the man's third strike, which was a kick aimed at her stomach. Now, I think this has gone far enough. Are you out of your damn mind? The shop owner spun round and paled slightly. It was the costumer he had been serving until he vanished. He looked extremely annoyed. What the hell is wrong with you? She just tripped over and sent a load of Pokeballs scattering across the floor. That's no reason to beat the living daylights out of the poor girl. Naruto fumed, slightly leaking killer intent. The man stuttered. Whoever this kid was, he was giving the impression that he would beat the crap out of him. And with a body like that, he would be able to do it with ease as well, thought the petrified shop owner as Naruto took off his trench coat and wrapped it around the beaten girl, who flinched slightly at his touch. Now then, I'll give you to the count of 3. If you haven't given me a good excuse by the time I'm done, then there's going to be hell to pay. 1. Stated Naruto as he stood up and looked at the owner, who was currently racking his mind. 2. Spoke the angry blonde-haired teen as he began to crack his knuckles. The fat midget was now sweating profusely. She is a Pokegirl. They're below people like you and me. If you don't discipline them, then they will just do the same thing again or rebel. The vertically challenged man slumped to the floor, wheezing as Naruto delivered a punch to the man's solar plexus. So just because she isn't entirely human, means it gives you free rein to beat her up? You disgust me. I pity her when she has to be tamed. I'm surprised she can find that needle you call a penis under all that fat. Naruto spat as he kicked the man in the ribs, hearing a satisfying crack. Spinning round, he walked to the shop assistant, who once again cowered in fear. Don't worry, miss, I won't hurt you, I promise. Now let's get you to see Joy, I'm sure she can patch you up. Spoke Naruto in a calm, placating voice. The girl continued looking at him, unable to find any lie in his eyes. That's when Kairi spoke up. Don't worry, if Naruto promises something, he won't go back on it. He won't try to hurt you either. The girl looked between the two of them and nodded. She stood up and became extremely dizzy. She began to sway and fall. She braced herself, ready to hit the floor until something firm, but soft caught her. She looked up to find herself in the blonde's arms. She flushed a slight shade of pink, feeling his abs through his coat, which she noticed was still wrapped around her. Kairi, grab some Pokeballs, potions and whatever else you can get hold of and stick them in a shopping bag. I'm not paying scum like this. Meet me at the healing center when you are finished. I'm going to get the lady to Joy. Naruto looked over at Kairi, who nodded in reply and began raiding the shelves. Naruto looked down at the girl and gave his foxy grin. Her reply was to snuggle deeper into the arms of her protector. Naruto walked calmly out of the room as if nothing had happened. He completely ignored the wheezing man behind him making threats about calling the police. He left the shop and walked up the road to the healing center. He ignored the looks he received when he walked past people. He did however notice the fact that she was trying to get closer to him to hide from the prying eyes. It made her feel scared and insecure. That prick messed her confidence up real good, thought Naruto scathingly. Naruto marched into the Pokegirls center and was immediately confronted by Joy. Joy, I'm glad you found me. This woman hit her head rather hard. Then her employer started to beat her even more. Joy looked at the woman who was trying to avoid being seen in Naruto's arms. She tensed up immediately. Okay, then follow me. With that, the nurse walked off with Naruto in tow. The woman in his arms squirmed uncomfortably. Naruto looked down at her and gave a small smile. Don't worry, Joy won't hurt you. The girl relaxed slightly as Naruto walked into a room that held a great amount of medical supplies. Joy looked at Naruto. Could you set her on the bed, please? Asked the pink-haired nurse. Naruto set his passenger on the bed and began to leave the room. He got to the door and looked back at the two females. After giving them a foxy grin, Naruto left the room. Joy looked at the girl sitting in the bed. Okay, then let's get you fixed up. Who exactly did this to you? Asked the gentle nurse as she tended to the woman. The girl on the bed fidgeted a bit before giving a reply. My tamer did, spoke the girl barely above a whisper. Joy looked shocked and then figured it out. Oh, you are an ingenue then? I'm surprised Naruto could tell you were a Pokegirl. He is extremely new to being a tamer. This shocked the ingenue. She had forgotten that man who saved her was a tamer. Most males hated Pokegirls, yet he seemed to treat his Nagatsune with a great amount of respect. The door opened as Joy had just finished healing the ingenue in front of her. They looked over and saw Kairi holding about 5 bags full to the brim of items. Hi-ya, Joy. You know where Naruto's room is? I've forgotten where it is. Joy sighed and slapped her forehead with her palm while Kairi scratched her left cheek, having the decency to look sheepish. She then noticed the ingenue. You're the one Naruto helped from the shop. Are you okay now? Asked the curious Nagatsune. I'm fine. Thank you for your concern. Sorry, but I must get back to the shop. The girl began to leave the room until Kairi grabbed her arm. The ingenue looked at the vixen and cringed when she saw the look in her eye. It was the look that said, no way in hell am I letting you go back there. Listen, girl. There is no way I'm going to just let you waltz on back to that bastard to get beaten again. I'm sure Naruto would think the same, spoke Kairi in a slightly raised voice. What would I agree with you on? Both girls jumped 10 feet in the air and looked down the hall. Naruto was leaning against the wall as he looked at both girls intensely. No matter, I can tell from what is in front of me what is happening. This ingenue wants to go back to its tamer. However, Kairi won't let her. For once she is correct. I won't let you go back just to get beaten. No one deserves that, spoke Naruto, grinning as he saw the look on the ingenue's face. He then looked at her properly and winced. She was 5'5" tall, like he predicted earlier. She had absolutely no fat or muscle on her body at all. What had happened to her? It looked like she had been starved to reach the stage she was in. Her red hair was dull and lifeless and her brown eyes had a lifeless look in them, like she was resigned to this. The ingenue noticed he was looking her over and tried to shy away when he growled. I'm not letting you go back. It's obvious how mistreated you are. I refuse to have it any other way. You little lady are coming with me. This shocked the 3 girls. Kairi and Joy looked at the ingenue and saw the conflict in her eyes. She wants to join, but she just didn't trust him. Kairi noticed the girl looking over at her and gave her a friendly smile. Come on, Naruto won't hurt you, will you, Naruto? Asked the vixen. The ingenue looked at Naruto, who smiled and walked up to her and placed his hand on her shoulders. Don't worry, if you travel with me I'll make sure no one will ever mistreat you again. If I mistreat you in any way at all, I'll give you enough money to last 2 months so you can settle into a society again. I promise this on my life." That was all it took to break the ingenue's resolve. She latched onto Naruto like a leech and began to sob. Naruto awkwardly began to rub her back. He never knew how to comfort a crying woman. "It's all right, but we need to do one thing before anything else with you." The ingenue looked at him curiously, a little sparkle in her eyes. Naruto smiled slightly after seeing a smile amount of life returning to them. "We need to fatten you up. No teammate of mine is going to be a skeleton. I need you to be at your preferred weight. I keep thinking I'll break you. You eat a human-style diet, right? Actually hold still for a second." Naruto continued as he whipped out his Pokédex and scanned the girl with it. Level 13 INGENUE, the generalist Pokegirl type, very near human. Element: normal frequency. Common diet: human-style foods, leaning towards vegetarian. Role: domestics, general labor, anything that doesn't require paranormal powers. Libido: average strong versus ghost weak versus fighting, poison attacks, domination attacks. Attacks: bite, punch, kick, tackle, pummel, yell, wrestle, growl, glare, cheer, takedown, leap, hammer, dodge, trample, concentration, double edge, helping hand, love and affection, once more. Enhancements: enhanced durability, X2, enhanced speed, X2, enhanced strength, X2. Evolves: diva, normal, damsel, orgasm, sidekick, any elemental stone, battle angel, steel coat. Trade item: duelette, become competent in duel monsters games, win a tournament, shield maiden, Psy crystal. Evolves from bunny girl, stress. A great number of times, girls go through threshold without any real change, other than maybe getting a little sear in appearance. When this occurs, they become a Pokegirl known as an ingenue. Ingenues are among the most tolerated form of Pokegirl, as they have no animalistic appearance or over-the-top attacks. Even in more anti-Pokegirl rights leagues, such as Indigo, ingenues aren't as badly treated. Essentially, they're hornier humans, although you'll get a dirty look in the cold shoulder from any ingenue who hears you describe them like that. Their feral state is mild, leaving them in a state of distraction. Ingenues are not combat-suitable Pokegirls. They are, however, extremely useful in domestic tasks or basic scout work. Frequently they can be found in stores, working as clerks or chefs. Some ingenue owners also hide the fact that their girls are ingenues in consideration for people who don't like Pokegirls. This is easy to do, since ingenues do not have any distinguishing marks. Also, frequently ingenues are employed to keep an eye on their ditzier cousins, the bimbos. As mentioned earlier, ingenues are not combat-suitable Pokegirls. During the Revenge War, they were used as infiltrators, sneaking into human encampments and then either spying or, in rarer cases, triggering an evolution to sidekick through means that were unknown until the discovery of elemental stones. Some bunny girls evolve in ingenues through stress, although the mechanism is uncertain. Some crueler people have said that forcing a bunny girl to use her brain will turn her into an ingenue. Those people were given a wedgie and hung by their underwear from a flagpole. I am not making this up, there are several recorded incidences of this happening. Ingenues are a fairly commonplace threshold. Most girls who undergo a transformation into an ingenue accept it fairly well, as all they get is a slightly increased libido. So you are a vegetarian, are you? Damn, now I don't have an excuse to make a fry up. Naruto wailed as tears ran down his face anime style. The young girl giggled lightly at his antics while Kairi and Joy just shook their heads and grinned. No matter. Let's get you some salad. Also, I know you prefer vegetables, but you will eat some meat as we need to put something on your bones. Spoke Naruto sternly. He then remembered something. By the way, do you have a name? It would be less awkward to talk to you then. Spoke Naruto. I was called bitch before, Naruto-sama. Spoke the girl who flinched as Naruto grew angry. I'm sorry, Naruto-sama. Exclaimed the girl who thought she had said the wrong thing and angered her master. Naruto shook his head. I won't accept that apology, you have done nothing wrong. Your name isn't bitch though. Your name is now Tenchi, understood? Angel nodded her head and Naruto's frown turned into a grin again. Good, now let's go get some lunch. I'm starving. Care to join us, Joy? The nurse shook her head. Sorry Naruto, but I'm still on duty. Maybe later though. Naruto nodded in reply and the trio headed off to Naruto's room. When they got there, Kairi leapt onto the bed and hugged the pillow while Tenchi stood there awkwardly. Kairi noticed and hopped over to her. Come on, lighten up. No reason to be tense or anything around us. Kairi said, bouncing over to Naruto like a ball and latching herself onto his back. Angel smiled at the duo and walked sedately over to Naruto, who was going through all the things Kairi took from the store. Looks like we are going out to eat people. Kairi forgot to take any food with her when she went shopping. Naruto said. Kairi rubbed her head sheepishly while Angel just looked at the two. It was puzzling to her. It wasn't your typical tamer, Pokegirl relationship. They seemed more like good friends than master and slave. Sorry Naruto-kun. I was so caught up borrowing equipment from the store I forgot about food. Kairi said with a foxy grin. Naruto chuckled slightly as the Nagatsune slid off his back and latched onto his arm. Tenchi looked onwards at the two and smiled. Naruto noticed and held out his hand for her. She tentatively took the hand and blushed slightly. Alrighty girls, I guess we are gonna go shopping. Since the store we rescued Tenchi from is out, I guess we'll have to find another. Do any of you girls know where a shop is? We got lost because of my crap sense of direction last time. Spoke Naruto as they left the room. Tenchi took the time to speak up. Actually Naruto-sama, there is a store not too far from here. Spoke the human-looking Pokegirl demurely. Naruto looked at the shy girl and smiled. She seemed to act a little lighter, but maybe because of how she saw Kairi and him interact. Okay girls, first we are heading to the restaurant up the road. Then we'll be going food shopping. Now let's eat. Don't worry about the cost. My team won't starve. As soon as Naruto had finished his sentence, he found himself out of the Poke Center and halfway up the road being dragged by his girls. This caused many a head to turn as the population saw a young man being dragged up the street by a tailless fox and a pretty young girl. How the hell can you two eat so much? That entire meal cost us 1250 SLC, exclaimed Naruto as he walked out of the restaurant with two very funny and happy females following behind him. Glancing back, he smiled. Kairi had a content smile as she gazed at him happily. The thing that caught his eye though was that Angel positively glowed. This made him frown. Was she really treated so bad that she never got enough to eat? Both girls had the decency to blush. I'm very sorry Naruto-sama. I honestly don't know what came over me, spoke Tenchi shyly as she looked down to the ground. Naruto looked at her and smiled. Hey, no worries Tenchi. At least I know how much you can eat now. Plus, like I said, I will not let my teammates starve. At this the blonde male cleared his throat slightly. Anyway girls, after we go shopping and get back to our room, I need to speak to you about something. Both girls looked at their male companion and wondered what he was on about. It was starting to get dark when the trio finally made it back to the room Joy was letting them stay in. Naruto mentally thanked whatever deity was watching over this world that Angel was good with domestics. Honestly, he didn't know the difference between toilet paper and a flannel if it slapped him in the face, so he had opted to just let her do all the shopping, otherwise it would have taken forever. Kairi, her patience clearly not showing, got straight to the point. Okay Naruto-kun, what do you want to talk about? Naruto sighed. This could get very problematic. Okay girls, I'm going to be blunt here. Early this morning I was checking my Pokédex about taming. Eventually I'm going to have to tame you too. However, because of my amnesia I will not be able to tell when you will need taming. Therefore it would help me greatly if you could ask to be tamed when needed. Both girls looked on and shocked. This was what he wanted to talk about. Well Naruto-sama, if we are generally acting strange and aggressive, it usually means we are turning feral. I know I'll be fine for at least another week. I need taming at least once every 2 weeks, but more often would be very nice. Spoke Tenchi in a quiet voice as she looked anywhere but Naruto's face. Well, I need taming every 10 days at least Naruto-kun. I'm due for a taming about now. I haven't been through a taming cycle for a week. Spoke Kairi as her gaze never dropped an inch. Naruto nodded and began to think. Alright girls, this is how it will go. I'll tame Kairi tonight. And I'll tame Tenchi tomorrow. Okay Tenchi? Oh, by the way, we are leaving town tomorrow morning. Tenchi, you'll be in your ball tonight as I want to spend my first time with each of my girls separately. The ingenue nodded and vanished in a beam of red. Naruto turned back to Kairi, who pounced on him. Before he could recover, he felt her soft lips hit his own gently. His eyes widened before they closed gently, and he began to return the kiss. Parting his lips slightly, he licked hers, taking the initiative. Kairi eagerly parted her lips, allowing his tongue to explore her mouth and caress her own tongue, making her moan. Flipping both of them over, making it so Naruto was on top, he gently slid his hands under her top and ran his nails up and down her sides, making the girl underneath him shudder. Naruto was stroking Kairi, whose breathing had finally returned to normal. Her head turned up and their lips met in a soft kiss. They broke apart, maintaining eye contact. His sea blue eyes gazing into her mahogany-colored eyes, which gazed back at him with love shining in them. "Is it true what you said earlier? Do you really love me?" asked the tailless vixen in a soft voice. Naruto looked confused, until he figured out that she was still a bit insecure, even if she didn't show it. "I mean it, my Koishi. I love you. Just as I will love Tenchi, and any other girl that joins us." Level 18 Dark Kitsune, the redeemed Nagatsune Pokegirl. Type: Anamorph, Vulpine. Element: Psychic, Fire frequency, extremely rare. Diet: Omnivore, preference for fish and meat roll, Illusionist, Avenger. Libido: Average to high, strong versus Fighting, Fire, Ice, Plant, Poison, Psychic, Steel. Weak versus Dark, Ghost, Ground, Rock, Water, Dog. Pokegirls. Attacks: Scratch, Tackle, Leap, Ember, Fire Spin, Flamethrower, Fireball, Hypnotize, Illusion, Cry, Dance, Psywave, Psychic, Psyblade Mark II, Confusion, Teleport. Enhancements: Quickness, Enhanced Hearing, X6, Enhanced Smell, X6, Undetectable Aura. Evolves: Kyuubi, E-Stone Ceremony. Evolves from Nagatsune, Redemption, Love. Nagatsune, a mostly sharp-tongued, quick-witted, and evil-aligned Pokegirl, can actually go through a marvelous transformation when given a chance. A tamer that tries to help a Nagatsune is a rarity to see. No surprise really, as a Nagatsune's personality tends for her to be quite disrespectful, resentful, and violent towards her master and harem sisters, and usually causes for them to be traded to another tamer. However, a tamer that works to break through the shell of hate a Nagatsune has built up around herself, trying to take down the insecurity, envy, and sadness that surrounds the Nagatsune's character, and can actually come to genuinely care for the rather selfish Nagatsune will receive a genuine surprise. Literally becoming enveloped in a fire of black, the Nagatsune goes through a final evolution, burning away all the evil that had wrenched her soul, shedding the shadows and magic which empowered her, allowing her to embrace truth and understanding. She becomes almost a whole new Pokegirl altogether. The Dark Kitsune. The Dark Kitsune is comparable to a vixen in looks, albeit with a few more differential cosmetic changes and powers, such as the fact that a Dark Kitsune's pelt colors are much darker, with a cranberry red all over, with the deepest ebony black on her hands and feel, and a rather tanned cream-colored underside to her pelt. However, the most noticeable trait of the Dark Kitsune is her tails. Before, where she had no tails, she now has two. Both tails are red-furred, but one is tipped in black and the tip of the other tail is the tanned cream. And as can be expected, a Dark Kitsune fills out more physically, compared to her previous form of Nagatsune. The personality of a Dark Kitsune is a complete U-turn to a Nagatsune. Whereas before she felt alone and damned by the darkest depths of hell, a Dark Kitsune feels free. She openly is more affectionate now, and gladly reciprocates any affection the tamer will show the Dark Kitsune. Also, the Dark Kitsune is more accepting to commands and will more than likely do as the tamer commands of her. In battle, a Dark Kitsune follows mostly the same strategies a Vixen and Fox do, going in and striking hard with fire elemental attacks. However, because of the psychic powers it also contains, a Dark Kitsune can try to add some more advanced tactics, such as teleporting from view just as it's about to strike, and then hitting the opponent Pokegirl from an entirely different direction. Also, she has a tendency to pick up and sharp metal it can get as soon as possible, as to perform Psy Black Mark II. Also, when cornered, a Dark Kitsune can use Psychic to damage the opponent Pokegirl, and get the breathing room she needs. Taming sessions are also quite hot. While a Dark Kitsune does not need as much taming as a Vixen or a Fox, a Dark Kitsune is just as passionate, loving her tamer and having S with him in every way possible. Also, it seems that a dark kitsune is more controlled than a vixen, as the motto, ready anytime, anywhere, with anyone, doesn't seem to apply as easily, since a dark kitsune does not have the tendency to start screwing out in public. Granted, making out kissing, and a bit of foreplay is okay to them, but they will not spread their legs until they are in a private area. Also, it's now possible to have the dark kitsune as the same harem as a shaguar, though granted, it's still not a good idea. The dark kitsune and shaguar do get along, but maybe a little too well. The fire-type nature of the dark kitsune seems rather attracted to the smaller ice-type Pokegirl. This can lead to a tamer having a rather tired shaguar when he needs her for battles. Naruto stared at Kairi in amazement. Congratulations, Kairi. Rest now, we'll celebrate in the morning. Kairi nodded sleepily. I made a new code, Naruto-sama. I will follow you wherever you go unless you order me away. With that, Kairi's breathing evened out, signifying her descent to slumber. Naruto smiled and followed his alpha into the land of dreams. Naruto awoke to find himself in his mind yet again. Wow, Kyuubi is talkative recently. Wonder what's up. Naruto traversed the sewers until he came across Kyuubi's cage. Oi Kyuubi, what's up? Soon enough, two enormous red eyes with slits stared back at him. Greeting, young kitling, and congratulations on evolving your vixen. I called you here to talk about the blood limits I am giving you. Naruto stood there gaping. She was giving him blood limits? Blood limits? You have blood limits here too? Amazing. So what are they? Asked a curious Naruto. I'm giving you a practical blood limit and changed it so instead of using wind and water you use earth and water. By using both you'll make wood. Perfect for houses, fires, etc. You'll also get my rapid healing as well as you will keep your insane stamina, in case you get caught off guard and someone commands their girl to attack you. You'll lose the ability to use all you techniques you learned back home though. Naruto smiled at the demon. She was actually helping him. Thanks Q. Guess having a demon sealed in you can be quite helpful as well as a burden. And for me not being able to use my old techniques, well I guess it's better this way. Avoids awkward questions. Kyuubi just looked at him and bared her teeth in a foxy grin. Hey, just don't get yourself killed. Don't want to die yet. I'll be touch soon. For now, snuggle up with your new mate. With that, Kyuubi expelled Naruto out of his mindscape, not as roughly as she used to though. As she watched him disappear, she decided to watch over him in this world. Naruto slowly woke up to find a weight on his chest. Looking down, he was Kairi lying with her head over his heart, her hands on his stomach and shoulder with her tails wrapped around his waist. Reaching over for his Pokédex, Naruto began to update his data. Tamer ID. Naruto Uzumaki, hometown. Titsville, profession, tamer. Harem Alpha. Kairi, Dark Kitsune, level 18-2. Tenchi, Anjanu, level 13. 3, N, A4, N, A5, N, A6, N, ASLC. 2,925 items. 20 potions, 15 Pokeballs, 10 antidotes, 3 repels, 8 full heal. Closing down his Pokédex, Naruto put it on the bedside drawer and rested his hand on Kairi's head, caressing her foxy ears, gently earning a soft sigh of contentment from the sleeping girl. He shifted slightly so he could get a better look, and the beauty curled up next to him. She was furry, slightly less than she was before, her fur now a cranberry red. Her two tails the same color as her body except the tips, with the left one tipped white and the right one tipped black. Naruto gently rolled her off him and got up to have a shower. He got out of the shower and released Tenchi. Giving her a good morning kiss, he asked her to help him pack up as they were leaving as soon as everyone was ready. When the ingenue asked about Kairi, he told her to let her be and sleep. The girl nodded and began helping Naruto pack. When they were halfway through, Naruto said, "Hey Tenchi, if you want to have a shower, take one now. We probably won't be near a town for the next few days, so this will be your only chance. I'll finish up here." Tenchi nodded and walked into the room next door. The sound of running water hit his ears as he continued packing. 10 minutes later, he hears a soft stirring. Walking over to the bed, he sits down and begins to stroke Kairi's ears. "Wake up, beautiful, you need to shower. We're going soon." The vixen opened her eyes and blinked blearily before saying, "Dark Kitsune." Naruto looked on at her with a confused expression before she repeated her herself. "Dark Kitsune? Naruto continued to look confused, so Kairi grabbed his Pokédex and flicked to the page she was looking for and showed it to Naruto. Taming shock. The first time a Pokegirl is tamed, she undergoes taming shock. This is thought to be due to the mild mental trauma of accepting another as her master, that is, forming an alpha bond, and using their master's mind during taming to stave off feraldom for the first time. Taming shock is a mild condition. The affected Pokegirl can no longer speak in the first or second person, instead referring to herself and others only by pronouns or by name. This condition usually wears off in a few days, though aberrant cases of as little as a few hours and as long as 3 weeks have been reported. It's worth pointing out that even if a girl who isn't a virgin undergoes threshold, she'll still go into taming shock when she's tamed next, since that's her first time as a Pokegirl. Naruto looked at her and sighed. "Oh well, it can't be helped. Congratulations on your evolution, though beautiful," said the blonde teen as he gave her a passionate kiss, which she returned with vigor before wrapping her arms around him and flipping them over so she was straddling him. Naruto grinned and pushed her off gently, getting a look of confusion from the vixen. "We're leaving soon, so after Tenchi gets out of the shower you take one, then we'll leave? Okay?" The two-tailed girl nodded reluctantly and lay onto Naruto again, snuggling up to him, and sighed contentedly as she nuzzled her head into the crook of his neck. The door clicked open and a girlish squeal pierced the air as Anjanu jumped onto the two as she came out of the bathroom. "You evolved? Congratulations!" exclaimed Tenchi as she hugged her alpha from behind. Naruto laughed as he pushed both girls off him. "Come on Tenchi, let Kairi have a shower. I would like to leave before 10 and it's 9:38 now." Tenchi nodded and let go of Kairi, who went to shower. When Kairi came out of the room, she quickly slipped some clothes on and walked over to Naruto and Tenchi, who were both waiting for her. She gave them a small smile, slipping her small hand into Naruto's larger hand as Tenchi latched onto his arm. Making sure they had packed everything, Naruto led his girls to the front desk of the center to say goodbye. When they came in view of the desk, they saw Joy was nowhere to be found. Not wanting to wait any longer, Naruto left a note and slipped it into the drawer. It had his contact details and a few words of gratitude written on it. Naruto led the girls out into the street and was about to leave town when Tenchi spoke up. "Naruto-sama, could we get an Everstone from Professor Banger? I don't want to turn into a damsel whilst you are taming me tonight." Naruto looked confused. "You can evolve through taming? Why don't you want to be a damsel?" Tenchi grimaced. She had heard about damsels. They were basically slaves, always willing to please their masters. "Please Naruto-sama, I'd rather die than become a damsel." Naruto flipped out his Pokédex and searched up damsel. Damsel, the invincible dainty Pokegirl type, very near human. Element, normal. Magic frequency, uncommon, Crimson League, Hardcore League, rare, elsewhere. Diet, human-style diet roll, swall exploration, ego stroking, domestic uses. Libido, high strong versus poison, psychic weak versus bug, dark. Attacks, sing, cheer, cry, yell, dodge, recover, once more, helping touch, overwhelming attraction, blow kiss, puff puff, probing tongue, angel eyes, charming look, sigh rubdown, warm oil rubdown, rock that booty. Enhancements, enhanced endurance, X4, enhanced durability, X60, pheromone release. Evolves, matron, must be Pokewoman, giving birth or gaining permanent custody of children in some way, ice princess, ice crystal. Evolves from Anjanu, orgasm. Damsels are a rather interesting type of Pokegirl, mostly because of people's reactions to this breed. Formed from the common Anjanu via orgasm evolution, they have had their share of controversy. Some say damsels were made to insult women. Others say it was to fill a sense of need for females of this type, since the vast majority of Pokegirls have personalities that are the polar opposite of this breed. Others say that Tsukubi was so fucking nuts by the end of things he had little idea of what he was making. Damsels are generally slender, dainty Pokegirls that have very curvaceous bodies, with slender waists, bees that are D-cup at the least, flawless features, and long, silky hair. They get stressed out easily, and are easily frightened as well. Damsels emit a pheromone that draws any attackers in the area towards her. She has almost invulnerable flesh and can take damage that would otherwise maim, kill, obliterate, and generally destroy anything short of a widow. Unfortunately, they are totally inept at battling, and bend to any will stronger than their own. For years, the remaining scientists in the world were at a loss as to why this was so, until they discovered that damsels have no sense of pain, and a heightened sense of pleasure. It's theorized that they cannot become penances, but no one is willing to test this theory. Dominas and their evolutions adore them, as they can do whatever they want to them and get a reaction that pleases them. Conversely, Pokegirls such as side dykes hate damsels with a passion for their submissiveness. People saw little use for them at first, but many uses began to arise for them. Some tamers greatly enjoy the damsel in distress routine, and set up situations where their damsel is put in danger, and they can rescue them. As mentioned earlier, they can be used for keeping dominas busy and getting their focus away from dominating the harem. Some tamers use damsels as training targets for weaker Pokegirls, as they can take a lot of punishment before getting tired out. Another favorite use for damsels is tying them up and using them as bait for randy wild Pokegirls. This use is generally discouraged, but efforts to put a stop to it were quickly abandoned, as they couldn't find the tamers doing it. Mainly damsels are used to fulfill the need most male tamers have for a submissive, subservient woman to stroke their egos and make them feel like a man. Damsels are very loving, affectionate Pokegirls, always ready with a compliment or kind word. There are several dozen known cases of thresholding into a damsel. It's not the most common result of threshold, but it's one of the higher-end ones. Naruto snapped his Pokédex shut and looked at his ingenue, who had a look of absolute disgust on her face. That's just an insult to women. Basically a slave. I'd rather be a barrier maiden, than I could protect what is precious to me. Naruto stopped dead when he heard those words. Both Pokegirls noticed and looked behind him. Naruto checked his Pokédex to see how to get a barrier maiden. He smirked and walked past the girls. Come on you two. We owe the professor a visit. Called Naruto over his shoulder as both girls ran to catch up with him. Naruto walked right through the main gates, where were left open yet again. Naruto laughed and strolled in yet again. Both girls looked at him weirdly before following him. Naruto led them straight into Richard's office. Taking a seat, Naruto gestured his girls to do the same. 5 minutes later, Richard walked in and jumped 6 feet in the air, cracking his head on the doorframe. Kairi giggled at him and Naruto smiled. Hey professor, how you doing? Your gates were open again. Richard's face planted comically before getting up and shaking Naruto's hand. Naruto, how are you doing? How is Kairi? I'm good, and Kairi is in Tamer's shock. She is in the corner over there. Richard looked round and saw a dark kitsune who walked up to him and bowed respectfully. Richard just stared blankly and rounded on Naruto. Man, how the hell did you get a dark kitsune so fast? You have only been a tamer for 1 day. Naruto just smiled. Guess I got lucky then. I just showed her as much love as I could at once, and it happened right after we finished taming. But we aren't really here to talk pleasantries. We are leaving town as soon as we leave your laboratory, and I need a favor. What do you need, Naruto? Asked the professor as he sat down in his seat. Naruto took the seat opposite and pulled his ingenue into his arms. I wonder if you could possibly give me a size stone and an everstone? I intend on taming Tenchi here tonight, but she wants to become a barrier maiden, not a damsel. She wants her first time with me to be as an ingenue, explained Naruto as he rested his chin on Tenchi's shoulder. Richard got up and walked over to a safe. Unlocking it, he pulled out 2 weird-looking rocks. The silver one is an everstone. The purple one is a size stone. Make good use of them, kiddo. Naruto nodded. Shaking the professor's hand, he bid him goodbye and left the laboratory and out of Titsville after borrowing a necklace for Tenchi to hold the everstone. Naruto and the 2 females stopped after an hour of walking through the woodlands that were east of Titsville. When they entered a clearing, Naruto called them to a halt. This will be the perfect place to set up camp for a few days. We'll be staying here training. Naruto turned around and clasped his hands together. Suddenly trees and plants burst from the ground. Manipulating the wood in different directions, it soon formed the shape of a small house, large enough to accommodate 4 people. He had also created 4 baskets made of wood. This is my blood limit, girls. I can control earth, water, and plant life to a certain degree. Now that's out of the way, I want you two to search together for anything edible like berries, plants, and stuff so we can eat. I'll be creating the rooms inside. Oh, by the way, Tenchi, Kairi is in Tamer's shock, so you're responsible now. With that, everyone set out to do their desired chores. 2 hours later, the two girls arrived with the 4 baskets full of fruit and a few rabbits. Tenchi carrying 1 basket and Kairi carrying 3 baskets and the rabbits, making use of her new tails. They walked up to what could be described as an old Japanese house, evidently Naruto's creation. Walking inside, they called out his name as they looked. The opening hallway was long and narrow. Naruto appeared from the room furthest down the hall, looking a little worse for wear. "Hey girls, found enough food?" He staggered a bit and Kairi was immediately by his side. 3 baskets of fruit lying on the floor as she used teleport to get to him instantly and wrap a tail around him, concern clearly showing in her eyes. "Don't worry, Kairi. I overdid it a little bit on the house, just give me a few seconds," smiled Naruto as he pecked his dark kitsune on the cheek, making her smile. Turning to Tenchi, he noticed the food. "Good work, you two. We'll have enough until the day after tomorrow at least." "Were there any hitches at all?" Tenchi shook her head and gave a small smile. "No, Naruto-sama. Everything went smoothly, though I did see a stream not too far from here, about a kilometer or so." "Should I start cooking now, Naruto-sama?" spoke Tenchi, back to her demure voice. Naruto smiled at the gentle girl. Walking over to her slowly, he wrapped her in a hug and gave her a kiss. "Thank God. Someone here can cook. Seriously, every time I cook I'm lucky I don't die of food poisoning. Come, I'll lead you to the kitchen, and when we have eaten then I'll take you on a tour of the house." Tenchi chuckled at his antics as they carried the food down the hallway and entered a door on the right. "I tried my best in this room. Hopefully it has everything you'll need, Tenchi. By the way, there is a well outside for water," spoke Naruto as the two girls followed him into the room and gaped. Naruto had done a decent job. The room was 8 meters long and 9 meters wide. It contained a clay stove, a sink, 4 worktops with a chopping board on 2 of them, bowls of various sizes, and plenty of cupboards for storage and a table in the corner of the room. There was also a few chopped up logs in the corner, evidently for the stove. Tenchi walked into the room and gave it a good look over. "This will do just fine, Naruto-sama. It's amazing you were able to create all this." She turned to him and gave him a small smile before hugging him. Naruto smiled and wrapped the girl in a one-armed hug. "No problem. Though you're going to have to ask Kairi to light the fires and keep the house warm." "I've never really been good with fire." Both girls nodded. "Well, I'm more of a household Pokegirl anyway, so I can take care of this place. Kairi, could you get the stove burning, please?" Kairi nodded and sent a small fireball into the hole of the stove. It blazed into life, heating up the room. "Well, you have everything under control. I'm going to take a nap." Who knew building a house was so hard? With that, Naruto slouched over to the table, sat down, rested his head on his arms and drifted off into slumber. Both girls just looked at their tamer and smiled. Kairi motioned she was going to sit on the patio just outside the kitchen, which Tenchi understood, and she began preparing dinner. Gutting, cleaning, skinning and chopping the rabbit up, Tenchi began her work. Kairi, however, was on the patio just outside the kitchen, ready to intervene if anything went wrong. She gazed up at the sun, listening to Tenchi hum soothingly as she set about cooking. She thought back to last night where Naruto and her made love. She had never felt so safe and happy. Just thinking about it made her heart swell and warmth flood through her body. Half an hour had passed before she heard a small voice called her. "Kairi, can you come and help me, please?" Kairi teleported to Tenchi's side. "I was wondering, would you chop the fruit? I'm trying to make a fruit salad. Choose the size of each fruit you want cut into chunks, okay? I'm sure Naruto-sama won't mind. I don't either." Kairi nodded and looked around for a knife, unable to find one. "No knives," she muttered before freezing. "I can speak normally again?" She spoke louder this time. Her voice was lighter now and carried more of a jingle. "Yes?" cried out Kairi happily as she did a happy little jig. She was stopped immediately by Tenchi. "Quiet down, Kairi. I'm happy you got over your tamer's shock, but you are going to wake up Naruto-sama." Kairi stopped and scratched her cheek with her tail. "Sorry," she whispered before getting back to work as Tenchi shook her head at her hyperactive alpha. "Tenchi-chan, there aren't any sharp knives. You used the only one for the rabbit." "Naruto can't manipulate metal," said Kairi as she searched through all the drawers. She then remembered the sharp, pointy knife-like object that Naruto had held to her neck 2 days ago. Walking up to him, she saw a pouch on his leg. She reached for it only for a rough hand to clamp down on her wrist. "What are you doing?" asked Naruto as he lifted his head up. Kairi shook a bit at the look in his eye. "I just needed a sharp knife. We don't have any cutlery," she said truthfully, staring right into his eyes. "You are out of Tamer's shock so soon? I'm proud of you, Kairi. Sure, use one of my kunai. They're meant for stabbing, not chopping, but should be usable." With that, Naruto flipped open his pouch, tugged a small ring. A knife with a 5-inch long blade came out. Throwing it in the air and catching it by the tip, Naruto handed it to Kairi. "It's bladed on both sides, so please, be careful. When do you think tea will be ready, Tenchi?" The human-looking Pokegirl looked around with a smile and replied, "About 15 minutes, Naruto-sama. Please, rest a bit more, we can handle this." She spoke as she walked over and gently pushed Naruto back down into his seat. Before long, Tenchi carrying a wooden bowl half full of rabbit and Kairi bought a bowl of fruit. Tenchi mixed the meat in with the fruit and served as even a portion as she could. "Enjoy, the best I could do for now. Naruto-sama, we need to get some metal appliances when we next get close to civilization." Naruto nodded and created 3 wooden forks. "Don't worry, girls, the cutlery won't splinter and get into your food. This wood doesn't splinter easily," explained Naruto as he looked at the girls' doubtful expressions, which eased up. "If you're still hungry after Naruto-sama, then there is some spare fruit left," added Tenchi as they all began to eat. "Given what you had to cook with, this is amazing. You are definitely designated cook, Tenchi," sighed Naruto as he pat his belly. The human-looking woman smiled. "I'm glad you enjoyed it, Naruto. I'll begin washing up now." Tenchi took everything they used to the sink and left for the well just outside the kitchen. Naruto pulled out a pen and paper out of God knows where and began writing. Kairi walked around the table and peered over her master's shoulder. "What are you doing, Naruto-kun?" asked the curious vixen as she shifted and sat on his lap, nuzzling into him. Naruto smiled at his over-affectionate alpha and replied, "I'm drawing up a training schedule for you girls." Kairi smiled and kissed him on the cheek, her hand tracing from his face down his torso and stopped just before she reached his crotch when his hand rested on her arm. "Sorry, my love, but I promised Tenchi I would be hers tonight. If she tires out though, then I'll tend to your needs, okay?" Kairi pouted before giving his penis a squeeze through his trousers and slid off him when he stroked her tail. Kairi froze as he did it again and began trembling. Naruto carried on petting her tail whilst writing up his schedules when he heard a small scream and Kairi begin to collapse. Realizing what he had done, he quickly caught the girl before her legs fully gave out. Tenchi came back into the room with the water and saw Naruto supporting Kairi, who had juices running down her leg. "I'm not even going to ask what happened, but please remember you promised me this night, Naruto-sama," the demure girl reminded him as she began to wash up. Naruto carried Kairi over to a chair and set her down. He tiptoed to Tenchi and wrapped her up in a hug from behind, making the girl jump in alarm before he nuzzled her neck and whispered, "Trust me, Tenchi, I haven't forgotten. I hope to make tonight of the best nights of your life." Naruto smirked into her neck as he felt the petite girl shudder slightly. With that, Naruto walked back over to the table and leaned on it. Kairi finally came around from her orgasm. "Sorry about that, Kairi. At least I know a trick for the bedroom now, though." Kairi blushed scarlet, not that you could see it. "Okay girls, exploration time," cheered Naruto as he bounced out of the room. Kairi and Tenchi's sweat dropped and followed their sometimes eccentric tamer. "Here is the bedroom. I made it so we all have a bed as well as a few spares, in case there is any injured tamers and Pokegirls," said Naruto, as the girls looked around. It was a rather plain room with 4 beds inside, a bedside table and a chest of drawers for each bed. "Bedside tablets holds more precious belongings whilst the drawers hold clothes and other things," stated Naruto as he sat down on a bed. "Beds are kind of hard, there are sleeping mats in the wardrobe over in the corner," continued Naruto as he opened the wardrobe to show the girls. "This is the main living room. Basically just a room where we relax and stuff. Not much to say here. Just where we chat and have fun." The room had a variety of chairs and sofas for lounging on. Naruto led them to the next room. "Now this is my pride and joy," said Naruto as he walked up the flight of stairs at the end of the hallway that spiraled up. When they got to the stop of the stairs, both girls gasped. They were looking at a dojo. It was enormous, basically the whole of the second floor, and had different sections. There were targets, weights, cardiovascular equipment, and a massive fighting arena at the back. We'll be training here for the non-destructive stuff. Kairi, I'd appreciate you didn't send fire attacks around in the house, as you'll end up burning the house down. This is all made of wood, stated Naruto as he gestured to the equipment. Kairi nodded and went over to the targets and flung a hand out. 3 psi waves formed, instantly slamming into a single target. Their target, however, looked unharmed. Naruto grinned at her expression. Surprised. The wood is reinforced with the minerals of the earth itself. You'll need to either hit it with a lot more force or burn it to the ground. I didn't want to keep creating targets, explained Naruto, before grabbing Tenshi's hand and dragging her over to a contraption. This Tenshi is a punching bag. We'll be using this to make sure you know how to throw a punch and kick correctly. There will be times where me or you harem sisters are not around to protect you, so I'll be training you to defend yourself. Once you can punch and kick properly, I'll be sparring with you, said Naruto. Tenshi nodded in response and began to throw punches and kicks at the defenseless dummy. I'll help you in a minute. I'm just going to get Kairi started on some exercises. Tenshi nodded and began to practice hitting the dummy. Naruto walked over to Kairi, who was shooting psi waves like a barrage. Kairi, love, what are you doing? The dark kitsune didn't stop firing as she replied. Seeing how long I can constantly attack, then each day try and better that time. Also works as endurance training, spoke the two-tailed vixen as the shots began to slow down as she began to pant. She carried on, however, until her legs began to shake. Naruto quickly hugged her from behind, stopping her. Don't do that, you'll burn out and be bedridden. If you wanted to test endurance, why don't you wait until you are used to your new body and powers? They're very different now. Come and join your sister in training. She'll be happy to have someone with her. The rest of the day flew by according to Naruto. The girls couldn't say the same. Naruto had put them through hell, and the training ring had cracks and fractures all over the place. I'm proud of you girls. You are coming along nicely. It probably doesn't feel like it, but you two have improved tremendously in hand to hand. You even made me lose my breath a bit, lasting for 3 hours. Both girls just glared at him. Naruto chuckled. Ah, how he loved riling people up. Never got old. Looking outside, he noticed the sun had almost gone down. Tenshi, you better prepare yourself for tonight. Kairi, good night, my love. Naruto gave her a passionate kiss before groping her ass. Kairi moaned gently and whispered, good night, my love, before she vanished in a red light. Her hand slid into his scalp again as she massaged his head. Naruto, feeling the hands on his head, shifted his body up and kissed the woman next to him on the lips. How are you, beautiful? Asked Naruto as he pulled away and let the girl next to him shift closer, slinging her slender leg over his. She buried her head in his neck and fell asleep almost instantly. Naruto chuckled before groaning and slapping his head. Now he would have to deal with Tenshi and Tamer's shock as well. Sighing lightly, he pulled the covers over them and nestled his nose into her hair, gently falling asleep. It was morning when Naruto woke up to the sounds of birds chirping. Stretching slightly, he focused his attention back to the sleeping girl next to him, who seemed to glow as the sunlight hit her back. He smiled as she shifted slightly, trying to get closer to the source of warmth next to her. Naruto kissed her on her forehead and fell back into a light doze. He was disturbed shortly after by Tenshi, who was starting to whimper. Tenshi slowly woke up and tried to move, only to whimper in agony as pain shot through her core. She knew it was a bad idea to tell Naruto to force himself in, but she didn't expect it to hurt this much. She felt arms wrap around her and looked up slightly to see Naruto gazing at her. Are you okay? Asked the blonde as he began to kiss her forehead. She shook her head and was about to speak until she remembered about her tamer's shock. Miming writing, Naruto got out of bed, trying not to disturb her, and walked out of the room only to come back with his pen and paper. My navel hurts really bad. It can't move my legs. Maybe if I relax in hot water and loosen the muscles up, I could be able to move? Wrote down the ingenue. Naruto nodded and quickly called out Kairi, who in turn glomped him. Good morning, my love. How was last night? Asked the excitable kitsune. Naruto smiled grimly, making the kitsune calm down slightly. Tenshi was too persistent, and I heard her last night. We need to make a hot bath to help her muscles relax. I'm going to need your help. Look after Kairi and I'll be back. The dark kitsune nodded as Naruto walked up to a wall and placed a hand on it. Both girls watched as the wood rotted and fell away, quickly healing again, making a doorway leading to outside. Naruto then began making a new room. When he was finished, Naruto stared at his work. The room was 5 meters squares with a stone tub that could fit in 4 people in the middle of the room. The tub was 4 meters each direction, leaving 1 meter on 2 sides to walk around and climb in, and was 75 centimeters deep. It was hard rock designed to keep heat in and heat up if near a hot surface. Manipulating water from the well, Naruto made it flood into the tub and filled it up 2/3 of the way. He stuck a hand in and found it slightly lukewarm. Walking back out of the newly created room, Naruto gently picked up the Pokegirl and carried her into the new room. Kairi followed. Both gasped as they saw a massive pool of rock with water inside. Naruto, who was still naked, climbed into the tub, still holding Tenchi. Kairi, can you use a weak flamethrower on the rocks and heat them up? I'll tell you when to stop. Kairi nodded and spewed forth a weak stream of flames through her mouth. The rock heated up and the water started to evaporate. Good enough, Kairi. Why don't you join us? Asked Naruto as he sat down slowly, earning a sigh of contentment from Tenchi, who began to feel the pain in her navel receding slightly as she relaxed and leaned back on Naruto's chest as he positioned her in between his legs as he softly rubbed her navel with feather-like touches. Naruto was content leaning against the warm rock with Tenchi using him as a pillow. Kairi slid into the water gently and held a fireball in her hand to heat the water up a bit more. She then glided over to Naruto and nuzzled into his neck. She was near the love of her life, and that was all that mattered to her right now. Her arm slipped around his back whilst her tail stroked Tenchi's legs gently. She nipped Naruto's neck gently and licked his earlobe. It had been a few hours since they had got into the water when Tenchi tried to get up. She succeeded for most part and staggered over to the towels Kairi had fetched before she got in. She tried to climb out only to wince in pain. Naruto got up, dislodging Kairi, and lifted her over the edge of the bath. The ingenue gave him a grateful smile and grabbed her pen and paper. I'm going to lie down again. I should be all right by tonight, Naruto-sama. Wrote Tenchi as she walked back to the bed they shared last night and lay down on it. Naruto sighed and nodded. Are you going to be okay here by yourself? Kairi and I am going to go hunting when she gets out of the bath. After seeing his girl nod and curl up into the covers, Naruto stroked her back before heading back to the bathroom. Kairi, when you've finished we are going hunting. Kairi's eyes snapped over to Naruto and she got out of the pool. Drying herself off, she followed Naruto, who had jumped out of the window and ran after him. It had been 2 hours now and the 2 hunters were on their way back to the house. Will 5 fish and a deer they had somehow managed to catch. Naruto-kun, how did you manage to get a deer? Asked the puzzled vixen as she looked at the deer that was slung over his shoulder. Naruto shifted his shoulder, jostling the dead deer a bit to make it more comfortable. To be honest with you, Kairi, I got lucky. It wandering into the clearing I was watching and I managed to hit it in the head with a kunai. I think it must have been ill though. They're usually more aware. Kairi nodded her head in agreement when suddenly the ground shook a bit. Huh? What was that? Asked Kairi, only to be sent flying through the air and her world turned black. Naruto wasn't much better as his world turned black just as saw a creature ambling towards him. Level 23 RANDYSNATCH, the Wrecking Ball Pokegirl type, not very near human. Element: ground frequency, rare diet, herbivore role. Most randy snatches are used to knock down old buildings. Libido: high to very high, strong versus electric, fire, poison, rock, steel. Weak versus flying, ice, plant, water attacks. Dig, buzzsaw, earthquake. Enhancements: longer sharp digging claws and spiked semi-hard hair. Evolves: none evolves from S-shrew, normal. Once a S-shrew evolves into a randy snatch, or a slash as some leagues call them, she grows bigger in size. Her light brown skin loses its scaliness and she grows long, dark brown hair. When touched, however, her hair turns out to be tough and spiky and not at all pleasant to the touch, except to other ground Pokegirls. Her hands and feet grow claws and her tail extends as well. This transformation makes her better at both digging and fighting, and any tamer who catches a S-shrew for either of those purposes usually does his best to evolve her into a randy snatch as quickly as possible. The transformation also makes taming a bit more difficult, but an eager Randy Snatch knows how to work around those problems. Randy Snatches also prefer to be naked, because that's easier for both digging and S. A Randy/slash personality differs greatly from that of a S shrew. They no longer have any need for solitude and, in fact, enjoy being around others. They freely display their affection, usually by unexpected hugging, and enjoy a bit of rough and tumble. They try to keep in mind that not everyone is as tough as they are, but Randy Snatches are known to unintentionally hurt weaker Pokegirls. Randy Snatches also enjoy taming anytime, anywhere. Whenever her tamer or any of her harem sisters approach her with an offer, a Randy Snatch will drop everything she's doing and have S with them. Randy Snatches greatly enjoy all forms of S, except for those very extreme forms that end in mutilation or death. Are fascinated with the idea of S in public and take a the more the merrier approach. They are not nearly as knowledgeable as, for example, Ménage à Trois, but their boundless enthusiasm and great stamina makes up for a lot. Randy Snatches get on surprisingly well with Dominas in all their evolutions. Randy Snatches enjoy taking anything a Domina can dish out, and because of their natural toughness, they can take quite a lot, but they also enjoy playing swall power games from time to time. Cases of Randy Snatches getting a Domina to submit to her are not unheard of. Because of their excellent digging skills and powerful ground attacks, Randy Snatches are often employed for tearing down old buildings and digging mines, jobs most Randy Snatches obviously enjoy. Feral Randy Snatches are rare. They live in holes in the ground, but will come out when they sense anyone coming near, usually hoping to find someone to have S with. Unprepared travelers will find themselves enthusiastically rode and will usually get scratched. So far, no one has been actually disemboweled by a feral Randy Snatch jumping their bones, but it is not entirely unthinkable it'll never happen. Girls very rarely threshold directly into a Randy Snatch, but when they do the transition is generally smooth. Provided they get the S they want to distract them, they'll barely notice their wildly different bodies, and even if they don't have a lot of S, they'll probably have too much fun digging around everywhere to care very much. They walked through the door and found Tenchi in the kitchen. Spinning round, she flashed them a smile before showing them a piece of paper that said "Welcome home" on it. Naruto, who had left the deer outside the front door, smiled and kissed her on the forehead. "How are you feeling, beautiful? Hunting went well." Tenchi smiled and wrote down, "I'm better now, a bit sore still but bearable." "What did you catch?" "I'm looking forward to cooking again tonight." Kairi walked up and gave her harem sister a hug. "We have a few fish and a deer that Naruto-sama caught." He said it was ill though. Tenchi looked at Naruto with a few tears running down her face. Naruto guessed what she was thinking and embraced her. "No, it didn't feel any pain. It was very ill. I put it out of its misery." It never felt a thing. A knife straight to the head. An instant kill. Tenchi seemed to calm down slightly and nodded. "I'll gut and skin it, but you'll have to wash and cook it though," offered Naruto as he began to walk to the door. Tenchi nodded and wrote down, "I'll do the fish though." Naruto nodded and took a kunai and threw it into a chopping board. "Guess I'll be back later. There's a knife to deal with the fish though." With that, Naruto walked out of the door and carried the deer into the woods. "Well, since I'm useless in a kitchen, I'll be upstairs training. Come and get me if you need me, okay?" Seeing the ingenue nod, the vixen left the room and headed up the stairs. Tenchi turned around and thought back to last night. She could tell it hurt Naruto almost as much as it hurt her, and afterwards he was so gentle. If he wasn't then she probably wouldn't be moving right now. She sighed and picked up the knife Naruto had stuck in the chopping board and began to work. It had been a while since she had chopped the fish and began cooking it when Naruto walked in wheeling a small trolley. "Hey cutie, one washed, skinned, gutted and chopped deer ready to be cooked," spoke Naruto as he pulled off the lid of the trolley, showing her the meat. She hugged him thankfully and lifted some of the meat out of the trolley with a wooden spoon and began to cook with it. "Where is Kairi, by the way?" asked Naruto, looking around. A loud boom resounded through the house, making Tenchi jump 20 feet in the air. "That answers my question. I'll check up on her. I'll be back soon." Tenchi nodded and began cooking again. Naruto arrived in the training room to see a panting Kairi in front of the targets. Focusing her power, she shot a condensed wave of energy at the target. The wave missed slightly and hit the wall of the room, making it explode. When the smoke cleared, she gasped at the sight. There was a nice new hole in the wall from her attack. Oh no, what am I going to do? Naruto will kill me. She watched as the wood repaired itself like nothing. Spinning round, she saw Naruto leaning on the wall next to the stairs with his arm held out at the vanished hole. It's good to see you train till you drop Kairi. Just try not to overdo it, Kay? Spoke Naruto in a calm voice. Kairi nodded at him and lowered her head slightly. Sighing, she raised her voice to speak when Naruto stopped her. There is no need. Now catch your breath, we are going to spar until dinner time. Kairi nodded and sat down on a nearby bench. Naruto sat next to her and she snuggled up to him. They got up later and began to warm up. They had been fighting for 20 minutes when Tenchi finally came up the stairs. Guess that means dinner is ready, spoke Naruto as he lifted Kairi off the floor and set her on her feet. Come now, let's go devour whatever Tenchi made. I'm starving. Kairi nodded and they both headed towards the kitchen. The smell of fish hit the air as they came in to see 3 wooden plates with food with a fork for each plate. Tenchi bowed and gestured to their seats. Back at Konoha, things weren't going all that great, especially for Tsunade, the busty blonde leader of the village. It had been 3 days since Kakashi and Sakura returned without Naruto and had failed in bringing the Uchiha back yet again. This time it was because Sakura let her feelings, once again, get in the way of the mission, this time sacrificing Naruto in the process. The debriefing was something that was always at the forefront of her mind. Flashback. Gets lynched. Tsunade was busy, sat at her desk asleep thanks to the secret bottle of sake she had hidden in her office. Even though she was asleep, it was only a very light sleep. Her office door opened and her head snapped up, only to be greeted by the looks of Sakura and Kakashi. Junin Hitaki Kakashi and Chunin Haruno Sakura reporting mission failure, spoke Kakashi in a monotone. Tsunade looked between the two of them. Where is Genin Uzumaki Naruto? Asked the Godem Hokage. It wasn't the first time Naruto had done this, but Kakashi usually drawled. He was using his Enbu voice now. Uzumaki Naruto is dead, Hokage-sama. He got caught in my Kamui attack, spoke Kakashi as a tear fell down his face and soaked into his mask. Tsunade stared in shock. Naruto? Dead? Ridiculous, there is no way he could die? Junin Hitaki, you better be joking about the closest thing I have to a son or I'll send you to join him, growled the buxom blonde, cracking her knuckles as she stood up. Her heart sank as she saw another tear trickle down his face. Godem-sama, I would give up ICHA permanently if it would bring him back. Tsunade stopped dead. Kakashi was serious. He would never give up ICHA for anything. Her head lowered and she was gone. In a blink of an eye, her right fist hooked into Kakashi's jaw, making him fly back into the wall. How? How did you hit him? Asked Tsunade. Kakashi made a motion to his jaw. Tsunade healed his jaw in a matter of seconds and Kakashi then explained the entire mission. Traveling there, finding Sasuke, the fight with Sasuke, Naruto's condition, him making the decision to use Kamui, Sakura making him look away, and finally Naruto being caught in the crossfire and Sasuke managing to get away. Tsunade looked down, then at Kakashi as tears fell down her cheeks. Kakashi, I'm sorry for hitting you. You are paid for an A rank mission and have 2 weeks C rank paid leave daily to help you get over your student's death. Haruno, I want a word with you. Kakashi bowed and left, heading straight for the memorial stone. Tsunade turned to face her apprentice. So Sakura, mind explaining to me what went through your head when you redirected Kakashi's attack? Sakura looked at her mentor and began to speak. When I saw Kakashi active his eye, I knew what was going to happen. I made him look away from Sasuke because he was going to kill him. It's not my fault I made him look at Naruto. Sakura started and got blasted by killing intent courtesy if the pissed of blonde in front of her. Oh, so it's alright to save the Uchiha so long as Naruto takes the fall. You have cost me one of my most valuable ninja, Haruno. As of now you are no longer my apprentice. Your chakra points are to be permanently sealed by the Hyuga clan. Enbu. Take her to the T&I cells. Before the pink-haired girl could protest, she was whisked away in a shunshin. Flashback end. Ever since then she hadn't been the same. Her alcohol intake had gone down and she was constantly working. The first thing she did was add Sasuke as an S-rank missing nin to the bingo books with a kill-on-sight warning. This got many a protest from the council, but to be honest, she didn't care anymore. She had reminded them just who was in charge with a well-placed punch to the floor, reminding everyone just who they were crossing. Needless to say, there were no more complaints after that, as no one wanted to be of the receiving end of the Slug Princess's wrath. Jiraiya was now actively hunting the Uchiha down in revenge for his student, and Kakashi had stopped reading smut until he rejoined the ninja corps as an Anbu. When asked why, he said, "To remember my fallen student." Kakashi's technique sends someone to another dimension, or kills them. Please may it be the latter option. "I miss you, brat," thought the blonde Sannin as she stared out of the window at the village. It was late at night when Naruto walked back into the house. He wandered into the bedroom and smiled. On one of the king-sized bed in the corner, he saw his two girls snuggled up to each other. Pulling the cover over them and tucking them in, he crept over to the other king-sized bed and crawled in, falling asleep. He was woken when he felt the girls creep into his bed early in the morning. He smiled gently as they took up positions on either side as they curled up next to him and began to get into a comfortable position when Naruto moved, causing them to jump. "Good morning, girls. Sleep well?" Both nodded and latched onto him. Naruto laughed. Both girls were clinging to him like he was a plushie. Naruto settled down and let the girls get themselves comfortable. "We are looking for a new Pokegirl today to add to our harem, you two, so don't get too comfy and prepare for a fight." Both girls nodded and settled themselves beside their tamer. "How are you feeling today, Tenchi?" The ingenue smiled and moved her legs around. She looked up at him and smiled. Naruto nodded and got up. "Dunno about you guys, but I want a bath before we go catching." Both girls nodded and they prepared the bath before sinking in. Naruto gently pulled Tenchi to him and began stroking her navel. "I still feel bad, you know," he whispered into her ear. She smiled and twisted round to kiss him on the nose. "Ingenue," said the female, only to look down. Naruto smiled, still in tamer's shock. "Huh. No worries, you'll snap out of it soon." An hour and a half had passed as Naruto finally made to get out of the bath. Drying himself off, he said, "You have 10 minutes, girls. I want to leave in half an hour." Both girls quickly scrambled out of the bath and they quickly dried themselves, following Naruto to the kitchen where he picked up the last pieces of fruit. "We'll find more on the way. Let's kick some ass, girls." With that, Naruto walked out of the front door and into the woods. Both girls quickly ate their food and ran after him. They had been searching around the forest for a good few hours now. Naruto had caught some feral Pokegirls, but none he wanted in his party. The feral Pokegirls he had caught were a gypsy and a haricant. When the girls asked why, he said he would offer them to a ranch owner and see how much he would get. All the extra money helped. Both girls nodded at his explanation and they kept searching. They carried on until they heard a high-pitched scream. They ran to the direction of the scream and watched what unfolded. They watched as a small woman, about 5'4" in height with flaming orange hair, being surrounded by a group of about 18 bee-like creatures. Naruto watched as they moved closer. Pulling out his Pokédex, he scanned all Pokegirls in the area. Level 15 to 20 WASP, the Swarm Pokegirl type. Anthropomorphic, insect. Element: bug. Poison frequency: rare. Diet: vegetarian. Role: Swarm soldiers. Libido: low, high in mating season. Strong versus bug, dark, fighting. Plant: poison. Weak versus fire, flying, rock. Attacks: sting, quick attack. Whistle, double sting. Tri-sting, air recovery. Dash, blur, rapid sting. High speed, quick turn. Poison, poison powder, poison mist. Enhancements: enhanced speed, X7, wings for flight, stingers on abdomen, tail and wrists, poisonous venom. Evolves: Hornet, battle stress, or Wasp Queen, normal, death of previous queen. Evolves from Nun Bounty, for confirmed kill of full swarm, 800,000 SLC. Bounty, for reporting sighting of full swarm and getting out alive, 200,000 SLC. Recommendation: if you see a swarm, evacuate the area immediately. If you have a powerful enough Pokegirl, try to kill the Wasp Queen. The swarm will not pursue you if you do so, as they will stay to watch and find out who their new queen will be. Wasps did not start appearing until after the end of the Revenge War, leading some to believe that they were a sort of last hurrah by Tsukubi, a final attempt to attack humanity. They were misnamed locusts at first because of their habits of devouring crops, but a raid of one of Tsukubi's abandoned laboratories yielded the real name of the Pokegirls, even though they did have locust DNA spliced into them in an attempt to increase their aggressiveness. They were reduced to far more manageable, although still numerous, numbers after the war. Wasps are relatively unattractive Pokegirls. They have all the prerequisite feminine curves. However, their faces are highly insectal, with antennae, compound eyes, and mandibles. Their hands and feet are chitinous claws, and their abdomen stingers cannot retract. Unlike the buzz bee, their second and third stingers are mounted on the underside of their forearms rather than their bees, making them more effective in fights. They speak with a pronounced, distinct buzz to their voice. Wasps have no personal grudge against humanity. They have no personal anything against humanity. They simply feel what their queen feels. They have little to no mind of their own, being totally focused on the needs of the swarm and what their queen desires. Feral wasps, usually seen under the command of a wasp queen, are especially dangerous. Feral wasps always travel in packs, swooping down and swarming targets in the wild, either killing them for invading their territory and leaving them to feed other ferals, or sting them and inject them with a strong paralytic venom, taking them back to the queen for conversion into drones. Capturing and taming a wasp is not recommended, as they have a strong loyalty towards the hive, and breaking, turning it towards the one who captured them, is hard. Those that actually have the dedication to tame a wasp and turn it towards their side gain a strong, fast warrior. However, the wasp decides then and there that their tamer is their new queen. No amount of abuse or convincing otherwise being able to get them to call their tamer by any other title, even their name. They will be fiercely loyal, defending their queen and swarm sisters to the death if need be. And in some cases, if not need be, as wasps that actually accept someone as their queen, are very fast, strong fighters. As it is extremely rare to find wasps in harems, it is unlikely that threshold cases have occurred, and various studies bear this theory out. There are, however, many cases of Pokegirls and humans being taken back to a wasp hive to be transformed into wasps themselves by the special venoms of the wasp queen. Naruto quickly swore. This was bad, but he couldn't earn a blind eye. Naruto looked at the more beautiful one and guessed it was the queen. Level 24 Wasp Queen, the Swam Warlord Pokegirl type, anthropomorphic, insectal, humanoid. Element: bug, poison. Frequency: very rare, 1 per swarm. Diet: vegetarian role. Breeder: warlord of the hive. Libido: average, becomes high seasonally. Strong versus bug, dark, fighting, plant, poison. Weak versus fire, flying, rock attacks. Sting: rapid sting, high speed, black sky, beat up, poison mist. Poison: poison mask, slow venom, stop sting. Paralyzation poison, vertigo venom, berserk sting, blinding poison, hot sting, sleep venom, silence sting, zombie poison. Enhancements: enhanced speed, x8, enhanced strength, x5, more human in appearance, greater intelligence than previous form, flight, poison, stronger armor, arsenal of venoms in tail stinger. Evolves: none evolves from wasp, normal. Bounty: for confirmed kill of full swarm, 800,000 SLC. Bounty: for reporting sighting of full swarm and getting out alive, 200,000 SLC. Recommendation: if you see a swarm, evacuate the area immediately. If you have a powerful enough Pokegirl, try to kill the wasp queen. The swarm will not pursue you if you do so, as they will stay to watch and find out who their new queen will be. Wasp queens are considered by most to be a vast step up from regular wasps, at least in appearance. Their bodies become more humanoid, becoming as curvy as a psy-cute, while the insectal features of their faces reduce to antennae on their heads and compound eyes. Their chitinous armor thickens, gaining bladed spikes and turning black and red, but becoming more stylish in appearance, their wings growing larger, taking on the appearance of clear, shimmering silk. In everything else, however, the wasp queen is much more dangerous than their pre-evolution. They gain a great deal of intelligence back, and their poisons become more potent and varied, the wasp queen gaining a full arsenal to use on their opponents. They lead their swarms, usually 15 to 25 wasps, like armies, defending their chosen territories with the ferocity of a pantheress. They have their wasps capture tamers for taming, keeping them until they starve to death or die of exhaustion. injecting the tamer's Pokegirls with a special poison to turn them into wasps and increase their armies. So far, the only ones that have proven immune to this have been legendaries, widows, ghost types, and buzzqueens and buzzbees. An antidote exists to this poison, but it is totally effective only if administered during the first 2 weeks. They have full control over their swarms, carrying a mental link with each wasp, stronger wasp queens being able to talk through their drones by controlling them psychically. Wasp queens are extremely territorial, as said earlier, and would rather die fighting than give up the land they've claimed. They have a natural rivalry with buzzqueens and become ferociously angry when they encounter one, sending their swarms to invade the buzzqueen's hive, fighting the buzzqueen herself so viciously that the usual end result is the death of both queens. Also, if a wasp queen senses that another wasp queen is in the area, they will lead their entire swarm in an attack on that wasp queen, waging a miniature war until only one queen remains. The survivor then claims all surviving wasps as members of their swarm. When a wasp queen dies, 3 wasps immediately evolve into wasp queens and fight to the death, the survivor gaining full mental control over the swarm and moving onto a new area, slaying or transforming any Pokegirls in the area to fill out the swarm if need be, or driving them off. Actual recordings of a wasp queen battling are rare, since they prefer to work through their swarms, but a few years ago, several watchers with camera girls managed to catch several films of a wasp queen's battle tactics. They tend to stay high in the air, diving down to sting their opponents with their special venoms, leaving them paralyzed and unable to move, or leaving them too aroused to fight back before she injects them with her mutagenic venom. In the rare instances they are forced to fight hand-to-hand, they are capable of using their tail stingers like a sword using fighting type, extending their stingers to match the length of the blade they are up against, slashing and parrying with incredible skill. Due to the threat wasp queens pose, if evidence of a swarm is found, all tamers are advised to evacuate the area and report to the nearest league officials immediately. No attempts to capture wasps or the wasp queen should be made without support, and if you do capture a wasp queen, you are ordered to turn her into the nearest league office for disposal or removal to a more remote area, depending on the damage the wasp queen has done. Rewards are offered for the extermination of wasp queens and their swarms, a reward that has since doubled since a wasp queen was seen conversing and shaking hands with a Dranza known to be a member of the Limbeck Pirates. Naruto cursed again. This was looking grim. Tenchi, return to your ball. I'm not having you out here right now. The girl nodded and vanished. Naruto read the data for the last Pokegirl. Level 17 CHERRY, the tropical Pokegirl type, near human. Element: plant, magic frequency. Uncommon, Tropic League, very rare, elsewhere. Diet: fruits roll, flighty virgins, tropical guardian. Libido: average strong versus electric, rock, plant, water. Weak versus fire, flying, ice, dark attacks. Heal, teleport, insulate, regenerate, leech seed, vine whip, fruit juice, all others vary. Enhancements: healing milk, longevity, no feral state until evolved. Evolves: thorn, orgasm, thorn slut, evolved thorn. Normal, cherry blossom, sunstone, megami, mechanism unknown. Evolves from none, unknown. Sherry were one of the last Pokegirls created by Tsukubi, and because of this he had no time to finish modifying cherries. Unlike what was previously documented, Sherries have been found to be capable of being tamed without evolving immediately. The confusion stemmed from the fact that the first Sherry to be captured and tamed was tamed thoroughly by her tamer. Subsequent studies with other cherries and other tamers have shown that only a very thorough taming will cause a cherry to evolve into a thorn. However, due to the rarity of the cherry Pokegirl and the information provided in previous Pokédex information, the cherry remains a very unusual sight within a harem. A cherry often has hair that is the same color of just about any flower, most commonly blue, red, orange, or yellow, although other colors like purple have been documented. Their bees lactate something similar to milk, but it is sweeter and can heal. Pokegirls who drink milk from a cherry's bees do not lactate themselves. From the back of the head grows a single vine that can be used to attack or grapple, and cherries have been seen using this vine to travel through forests quickly, out of the reach of most grounded Pokegirls. The vine is normally the same length as the Pokegirl is tall, though it can be retracted or extended at will. They are considered similar to Megami in a lot of ways. The only real difference is that instead of makings they have flowers in their hair. A popular rumor among tamers is that the longer a cherry remains free the more powerful they become over time, so uncaptured cherries are always a prize to be sought. There is no known truth to this, however, although the few tamers that have a cherry in their harem seem to swear by it. When asked about how long the cherry was feral, however, no tamer could provide a time. Cherries are affectionate when with someone she trusts. Other than this, an uncaptured cherry usually shies away from any contact with Pokegirls or tamers, in order to remain a cherry. They are also not prone to battling, making a bad choice as a fighter in either standard or S battles. Cherries are much better at menial tasks, such as caring for gardens, babysitting, cooking, or taking care of others. It has been speculated by researchers that if a cherry could find work at a hospital, and not evolve, then it would do well thanks to her healing milk and abilities. Strangely, unlike most other celestial Pokegirls, cherries do not mind giving straight answers to most questions. Cherry Blossom is an evolved form of cherry. How it evolves into a cherry blossom has not been recorded or observed until the recent revelation of the Sunstone, but all tamers, watchers, and researchers warn everyone to avoid cherry blossom Pokegirls at all costs, for unspecified reasons. Cherries may also evolve into Megami, although the reason for this evolution and cause of it are both unknown. Only one cherry has been known to evolve into a Megami, and her current tamer refuses to let the Megami to be studied. Thorn sluts are the most common evolution of a non-feral cherry, since it evolves into one normally. Cherries also evolve into thorns, although this requires a very thorough taming. Strangely, cherry have been known to form delta bonds with their tamer during the act of her first taming, which is quite unusual but is often considered a side effect as a result of the cherry's magical nature. Naruto was intrigued by the girl. Kairi, this is the plan. I'm going to bind them in trees. When I do, set them on fire and return to your ball instantly. I'm going to grab the cherry and get the hell out of here as fast as I can. Kairi was about to hesitate when Naruto kissed her. Trust me, I'll be okay. Now are you ready? When he received a hesitate nod, he smiled. You'll do brilliantly. I'm counting on you. The dark kitsune nodded and prepared herself. Naruto clapped his hands together like he was praying, and trees burst out of the ground, branches wrapping around all the wasps and their queen. Sprinting out to the cherry's location, he heard the queen whistle. Wow, you're a fine specimen of a man. How about when I get free we take you back to our hive and make you our slave? Spoke the queen in a sultry voice. Naruto shuddered. He could still remember the Randy snatch from yesterday. Seriously, what is it with Pokegirls and raping me? Am I that good looking? Not that it matters. Kairi, torch them now. They looked to the side to see a two-tailed vixen burst from the bush and launch a massive hail of fireballs from her hands, hitting the trees, setting them on fire. Naruto saw a few trees begin to crack and the look of hatred on the queen's face. Quickly returning Kairi, Naruto picked the cherry up bridal style and got the hell out of the area. Sprinting through the trees, he heard an enraged scream and chanced looking backwards. The wasp queen was gaining on him. He looked at the cherry and saw her eyes widen in fear. Do you trust me? Will you trust my judgment? The cherry looked at him and nodded. It was that or the wasp would catch up. Naruto threw her high in the air with her screaming. Jumping up and landing on a tree branch, he caught her on her back just as the queen was bearing down. The cherry cried slightly. She could feel the queen's breath on her back. Naruto looked backwards and smirked. Suddenly a tree shot out and hit the queen in the face hard, knocking her out. Not sticking around in case her subordinates came along, Naruto sprinted to the house. Upon arrival, he set the girl down and turned around. Hey, you all right? The girl nodded shakily before saying, Yes, sir. Thank you very much for rescuing me. Naruto shook his head. No worries, least I could do. Though I have a question. Do you want to join my harem? The cherry began to think. 5 minutes later, she nodded. On one condition, I choose what I evolve into. Naruto smiled and showed her a Pokeball. It's a deal. You can decide who you want to evolve into. I'll give you a necklace with an Everstone on it later. Tapping the center with her finger, she vanished. The ball didn't even rock when she was fully inside. Naruto looked at his house and decided to leave it standing. Who knows, I might come back here sometime and eradicate that wasp if she is still about. Hope she will be, because that will be some good money. Doubt she'll show herself for a while, so there is a possibility. With that, Naruto sprinted west through the forest. His next stop, the Poke Ranch, a day west of his current position. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.